What is up, everyone? Welcome back to some more Higurashi. In the previous recording session, we hit the time skip and jumped forward to the quote-unquote present day, back to 1983, where events usually start to transpire. And we started seeing what seems to be the events of Chapter 2 unfolding again, but this time from a different perspective. At least that's what it looks like thus far. It still has some opportunities to go other places if it wants to, but it really looks like it's going that way. And honestly, it's like the first time this chapter is like really like fucking got me in its hooks. It got me really excited to see what they got coming next. So where we just left off is Shion had finished essentially, desecrating the corpse of Oreo and dumping her body down the well, and Mion had to bear witness to that. And god damn it. In the last recording, I said I was going to go back and rewatch that footage to see their argument when Keiichi went down there in chapter 2, to see if because I feel like that would really give away if that's where we were going, and I totally spaced it, totally forgot to do it. Well, I suppose we'll figure out one way or another. So that's where we immediately pick off. That just happened, and then it faded to black or whatever, and now I guess she's having a happy dream. So without further ado, let's jump back into it, shall we? I was having such a happy dream. Satoshi-kun was in the dream. He was leading his normal everyday life. He was back on the baseball team. Idia and I acted normally around him because we knew that's how mature people should act. We welcomed him back as if he had been here with us the whole time. Although he hits well in practice sessions, he still doesn't do well in a real game. Come on, Satoshi-kun. 3 strikes already. I'm cheering for you. Then Satoshi-kun pouted as he mumbled. I felt tears pouring down my face. Oh.
Satoshi-kun.
The happy dream faded out with my sobs. The harder I tried to focus on it, the faster it faded. Soon it was all gone. I could see the bright morning sun through a crack in the curtains. I was in Mion's room at the Sonozaki house. When did I come back? I was crouching in the corner of the room and crying. A dream is a dream. I wished I hadn't woke up. But one must wake up from a dream. We live in a world where there are no dreams, and that's why we always wake up. But I wasn't sure if I was the only one dreaming that dream, because I felt like Satoshi-kun was right beside me.
Satoshi-kun? 帰ってきてくれたんだ.
There was no reply. That was the rule. If it was Satoshi-kun, I wished he'd smile at me just once. But Satoshi-kun's presence faded away, as if he were never there to begin with. I heard the phone ring by the front door. Ah, that's right. I was the only one in the house now. I had to answer it. I got up to walk to the front door. I felt unsteady, so I put my hand on the wall to support myself. I hardly got any sleep. It was like I had a bad cold. The phone continued to ring. I probably didn't have to answer it, actually. But I was still half asleep, and all I could think of was answering the phone.
はい、Sonozaki です。
朝早くにすみませんな。君吉でござ。おばあちゃんまだお休みですかな?
It was Uncle Kimiyoshi.
はい。昨日のが答えたみたい。しばらく寝かせておこう。
そうだね。ミオンちゃんもこれからか。じゃあ枕元に伝言を置いといてもらってもいいか?
わかりました。何と伝言しましょう。
昨日の件で緊急に役員会を開くことになったんだけど、それをね、今日の夕方の5時から神社の集会所でって伝えてもらえる?
わかりました。伝えておきます。
As soon as I put the phone down, it rang again.
はい、Sonozaki です。
早朝から申し訳ありません。葛西と申しますが、ミオンさんですか？おはようございます。
葛西さん、おはようございます。
シオンさんはまだそちらにいらっしゃいますか?
I wasn't panicked, but I hesitated. Yeah, I'm very curious how you handle this one. I could tell him no, Or it could play both Mion and Shion.
シオンはさっき顔を洗って呼んできますね。
I decided to play two parts. I went back and forth down the hallway and picked up the phone again.
葛西、おはようです。
おはようございます、シオンさん。今日は登校されますか？
するわけないです。軽いし。
まあそんなとこだと。それでシオンさん、沖宮へ帰る足はあり、若いのに迎えに行かせますが。
君吉のおじいちゃんとか私のことは放っておいてくれて OK です。
親父さんから出席日数だけは守らせるように。私の小指のためにもご
まあ気が向いたら努力します。それより葛西、聞いてる？
聞いてるとは。
昨日のあれ、
一応は恐ろしい話です。
これまでのたたりの犠牲者はさ、それが今年はちょいと路線が違う感じですよね。どう思う？
さあ、私の預かり知るところの話ではありません。
Kasai wasn't the type to talk too much. If it was about something complicated, he usually responded like that.
夕べの犠牲者の2人がどうしてお社様のたたりを受けたか。
いいえ。
実は夕べなんか綿流しの最中に最後殿にこっそり忍び込んだらしいよ。鍵を針金か何かで開けて。
Kasai went silent for a while. I held my breath while waiting to see how he responded. I expected him to say that he couldn't believe those people were chosen as victims just for sneaking into a storehouse. I expected him to say that was just too unrealistic.
そうです。バカなことを。
ああ、まあ富武さんもそのあたりには疎いよそ者だったってことだね。
I went along with Kasai, but I felt disturbed on the inside. Kasai didn't wonder why breaking into the ritual storehouse would justify their deaths. I'd known Kasai for a long time, which is why I knew there was a heavy meaning to what he said.
でさ、実は
入ったん。最後殿にシオンさんが。
その高野さんと富武さん、そして私とほら前原屋敷に引っ越してきた圭一って男の子と一緒に4人で。
I heard Kasai sighing heavily. Even though he didn't say a word, I could tell he was shocked. Never known him to act this way before.
シオンさん、去年ああいう一件が今度はどうけじめをつけられるおつもりですか？
去年が爪3枚だったから。あ、でもふざけてるわけじゃな。そりゃ私だって少しは。でもさ、そこまでヤバいことなわけ？
シオンさんは今さらそんなこと言ってまかり通ると思いますか？
っていうか、だって私ずっと沖宮ばあさんに嫌われて以降、ひなみ沢にはほとんど近づいてもいない。その上学園に閉じこ、そんなの私が知るはずないじゃない。
I heard another sigh from Kasai. That sigh told me my excuses would be useless.
シオンさん、私は極力シオンさんを信じてあげたいとですが、いくら私でもかばいきれないことがあります。第一、
ごめん、お姉が来たから切ります。じゃね。
I interrupted Kasai and hung up. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear Kasai reject me. He who had been my ally all my life.
チェ参った
I could hear the sound of the cicadas. The sound made it feel like I was being cooked in a huge frying pan, making a sizzling noise. I couldn't help feeling remorseful. Now I knew that sneaking into the ritual storehouse wasn't a laughing matter, but I really didn't know it at the time. Sure, the door was locked, so they didn't want anyone to go in. Why did they change the lock? What did they say? I think it was that Rikachama said that the previous lock was too heavy for her, so she had it changed to that cheap one. That was how Takano-san broke in. If the heavy lock was still there, this wouldn't have happened. I slapped my own forehead. Then I took a deep breath. I had to calm down. What was the point of fussing now? I'd already passed the point of no return. There was no use thinking otherwise. The hag was already dead. Even if she wasn't, she was now at the bottom of the well. Therefore, it was already past the point where I could just cut off my fingers in apology. True. I felt so unstable. I'd walked on the fence around the swings at the park before, as if I was walking on a tightrope. It was fun because even if I fell, it was only a very short distance. But it wouldn't have been fun if I were up really high. At that very moment, I was in fact already on a tightrope that was a lot higher than the fence at the park. As soon as I took a step, the rope behind me would vanish. I couldn't step back because there was nothing behind me. That was, in short, the current situation I found myself in. Just standing in one spot was all I could do. Even if I never took another step, I'd fall if I wasn't careful. If I forced myself to walk, the danger would only increase. But if I didn't move, I would fall eventually. I couldn't see what was ahead of me. There was no guarantee that I'd ever find firm ground. But if I stopped, there was only one fate waiting for me. I have to move onward. If staying here guaranteed death, then I'd rather try to walk, even if I die as a result. If there was a dead end ahead of me, at least I tried my hardest. In general, I try to be optimistic. I could accept my life not lasting particularly long. But I wouldn't go easily. I'd struggle as much as possible. I'd already killed the hag. For that, there could be no other punishment than death. I knew my life would end soon. In other words, I was actually already dead.
死人がなおもあがこうとしたら、そりゃ特攻あるのみでしょ。
I clenched my fists tightly as I muttered. Even if I had to die, I couldn't die easily. This is my chance to avenge Satoshi-kun. Who did it? For what purpose? And why? I was going to investigate. I was going to question. I was going to expose. Yes, I was going to settle the score. I'd carry out the plan I came up with yesterday. I could hide the hag's death somehow. All I'd have to say is that she hadn't been feeling well since Watanagashi. I could do it all while pretending to be Mion. Just in case her friends at school became suspicious, maybe I'd start telling them I hadn't been feeling well either. Which is, yeah, that lines up. In fact, I did feel groggy from my lack of sleep. When I became Mion, Shion would automatically disappear. I'd already told Kasai that I snuck into the shrine storage, so he'd probably end up telling people that I was demoned away due to the curse of Yashiro-sama. Okay, yeah, that checks out. So honestly, yeah, telling Kasai, it's kind of like accidentally ends up kind of being a big brain move, because now when Shion disappears altogether, now Kasai is like, he's not gonna go on the search for her because he's like, well, shit, I guess they found out about her doing that, and there's, not much I could do at that point. Okay. So if this is a retelling of chapter 2, though, that means there's some point where she meets up with Keiichi at the library, right? Because that was the actual, like, last sighting of Shion. In that chapter, anyway. Like I said, they could go down a totally different road with this story, where they're at now. Last person I'd have to think about was the fourth one who snuck into the ritual storehouse, Keiichi Maibara. Maybe I can use him as bait to lure out the enemy. Ooh. Sorry, Kei-chan. You're going to be my bait. I felt a little bad, so I was starting to like him. With all that figured out, let's go to school. I'd gone to school as Mion before, so I knew how things worked. It was almost time to leave the house.
みーちゃん、遅い遅い。待っててくれたわ。先に行っちゃってもよかったのに。
あれ、ミオン、お前、顔が赤くない、息も妙に荒いし。
みーちゃん、ひょっとして具合悪くない？
Reina put her hand on my
レ
forehead.
ナの手、冷たいな。
みーちゃん、ちょっとだけど熱あるよ。
そんな大したことない。半日もすればケロッと治っちゃうって。
本当に大丈夫かよ。あんまり無理するなよ。
あれ、ケイちゃん、気遣ってくれるの？嬉しいな。
I always thought it was a goofball, so I was a little surprised. I thought they would tease me, but they didn't.
無理しない方がいいと思うな。先生にはお休みだって伝えとくよ。
大丈夫大丈夫。風邪薬も飲んだし、すぐに効いてくると思うから。
じゃあ行こうか。くれぐれも無理するなよ。時間。
走らないと間に合わない。
スリリングな朝になっちゃったね。鈍った体にはちょうどいいカツかもね。走ろ。
それでは委員長。
あ、起立。気をつけ。
I'd made the same mistake before. I never learned, do I?
みーちゃん、本当に今日は具合悪そう。あら、そうなんですの。それはよくありませんわね。
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. In like chapter 2, like she was seemingly unwell, but we just kind of chalked it up to like, oh, she's having it's due to her responsibilities as the successor, right? And then we start thinking, oh, she must have some involvement in like what goes on with like the Watanagashi killings and whatnot. So clearly, that's like weighing on her mind and all this. But in reality, Mion had zero connection to any of that in the first place. Interesting. It was a good idea to make them believe I was sick. Even if I did things differently from Mion, I had an excuse.
まあ女の子には体調が悪くなる日もあるってことだな。
僕にはそんな日はないのですよ。ミパ
Mion's friends kept each other occupied and left me alone. True. Keiichi Maebara. He might suddenly disappear one day. I couldn't let that happen. That would be like letting a fish take the bait and swim away while I was fast asleep with a fishing pole in my hands. I couldn't miss the moment the enemy took a bite out of Keiichi. I had to be very careful. But it was impossible to keep my eyes on him 24 hours a day. Spying on him at school like this wasn't good enough. Should I have him meet with Shion and let her explain that he's in danger? Ah, and that's why she starts doing the phone calls, huh? And that's why she's like, "Nah, you gotta keep me informed of like what's going on with you. You gotta like keep me in the know of what you're doing and what you're seeing, what you're experiencing. Cause we're in it together, bud. Yeah, okay. Maybe we could set up a strategy together. I didn't think Keiichi realized how serious a crime it was to step into the ritual storehouse. I hadn't, after all. Since last year, all the incidents that related to the curse had probably been investigated in secret. People involved with the three families would know about the incident from last night, but Keiichi shouldn't know anything. If he knew where he stood now, he'd be more cautious too. This should make him aware of his surroundings, and maybe he would notice if anything odd took place. And that's when, yeah, she like makes him promise like, don't tell anyone like, what we did. Don't tell anyone I was involved with anything you did or that you did anything that night. Don't implicate me in anything. Okay. Yeah. And then that's why I think like the very next day, Mion like presses him like, Keiichi, what were you doing that night? It's like, oh, what a coincidence. Shion just told me like not to, implicate her or myself in any of these things, and Mion's immediately pressing me. My God. And it's like not a coincidence at all. She's immediately testing his mettle and if he's willing to actually keep quiet. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Because then, like, I start to think. Because he does end up, blabbing to Rika about it. But then Rika says she'll take care of it, and, like, it's then that he implicates Shion in the matter. Though I suppose Shion would have already been implicated in the matter. Though that's the thing. At this point, or by the point that Keiichi blabs to Rika about what happened, they should all be under the impression that something has already... Anyone, like, in the know would already be under the impression that something has happened to Shion, right? She's quote-unquote disappeared. But then Keiichi goes to Rika say, like, oh yeah, no, Shion's very scared. And so I imagine Rika would be someone in the know, and then she hears from Keiichi that Shion's actually around. And then... Oh, and that that also makes sense if it's Shion playing Mion in chapter 2, because it's Mion who goes off about how Satoko's such a cursed child after Rika and Satoko go missing. Yeah. That checks out. I'm just trying to think, what was the event that caused Keiichi to question who he was talking to on the phone. That's what I'm very curious of. I can't quite remember. Because, yeah, eventually he's like, am I talking to Shion or am I oh, it's Oishi. That's right, it's Oishi. And the Oishi finds him and he's like, yeah, no, Shion's, I thought you were aware that Shion Sonozaki went missing. I haven't seen her since the day I saw you at the library. He goes, that can't be. I've talked to her on the phone. So then that following night, when she calls him again, that's when he questions her about it. Yeah, that checks out. Very interesting. The teacher caught him sleeping, so she ordered him to go wash his face. He walked out into the hallway. I was sleepy too. I had to be alert, but I couldn't clear my mind due to my lack of sleep. I decided to go home early. Since I've been pretending to be sick since morning, my request was approved. As I exited the building, I saw Keiichi watching his
やっ
face.
ぱケイちゃんはこっちの流しを選んだ。表の方が気分いいもんね。
あ、ミオンか。授業サボるなよな。
Looked like it felt refreshing for him to wash his face with cold water. I washed my face too, but it didn't feel as good as it looked.
ミオン、風邪の方眠いのは寝不足じゃなくて、風邪。
あはは、実は内緒なんだけど、昨日はお祭りの後で親族の宴会に巻き込まれちゃってさ。それでエンドレスに。
I pretended to drink with an invisible glass.
徹夜明けか。心配して損した。
Keiichi exaggerated his reaction, but he still seemed worried.
じゃあな、俺は今日帰りは気をつけろよ。ふらふらしてそこや用水路に落ちるなよ。
Keiichi turned around to go back to the classroom.
そうそう、ケイちゃん。
I stopped Keiichi. He in response turned around.
なんだ。
変なことを聞くけど、深く考えないで答えて。
それは内容によりけ。
昨日の綿流しの晩さ、富武さんと高野さんに会わなかった？
I noticed Keiichi's body tense up. His reaction proved that he felt guilty about sneaking into the ritual storehouse. He was frightened that Mion Sonozaki might know about it. I guess this was enough to give him a certain impression of Mion Sonozaki.
富武さんと高野さんはわかるよ。ほら、ケイちゃん、お祭りの前日準備の時、シオンと一緒に4人でお話ししてたでしょ？
I could clearly see how dismayed Keiichi felt. He was trying to come up with an excuse.
さあ、あったような、合わなかったような。
He was both a bad liar and a bad actor. He wasn't really that intelligent at all. True. Well, that would make him a suitable friend for Mion. Oh, damn. He was just a brat, unlike Satoshi-kun. Although, when it came to lying and acting, Satoshi-kun was at about the same level. Maybe Keiichi should be credited for at least trying to tell a lie. Satoshi-kun wouldn't have even said a thing. I need to be thinking about him right now.
そう。じゃあもう一つ、同じく昨べ、シオンに会わなかった？
This was a very mean question. Keiichi was perplexed, as I'd expected.
それ、昨日も聞いたよな。俺、あったかどうかわからないって答えたと思ったぜ。
True. True. I had forgotten about that. Oh, I had forgotten about that. That's true. Eh? I'd asked him that yesterday? He must have meant that Mion Sonozaki asked him that question. In other words, she asked him that after he left the storehouse and got back together with his friends. Yeah. Yeah. Damn you, Mion. When I asked her, she said she had no idea when we went into the ritual storehouse. Shit.
そう、また改めて聞いたら、違う答えが返ってくるかなって思ってさ。
どうしてあったかどうかをそんなに気にするんだよ。
He was getting defensive. Keiichi couldn't hide his panic as he flared up at me.
大したことじゃないの。富武さんと高野さん、悪く言ってる人たちがいるの。何が悪いんだかはよく聞いてないんだけどね。
Keiichi was really perplexed now. This wasn't fun at all, but it could still be an interesting game.
私、ケイちゃんが悪いことをするなんて信じ、でもちょっとだけ聞いてみたかったから、不愉快な思いをさせてごめんね。
I made sure Keiichi felt a sense of crisis, then left. Nobody can tell us apart. We're Mion and Shion, perfect twins. When I returned to the Sonozaki house, I saw a woman with an apron on. It was a housekeeper. Her name was Shimiko-san. The hag had a few housekeepers who took care of the chores around the house.
ありゃ、シミコさん。何かご用で？
Today was her turn to come help out at the house. She'd arrived, but the gate was locked and she couldn't get in. She'd called, but there was no answer, so she'd just been standing there not knowing what to do.
バッチャですね。綿流しの祭りで面白く。
ああ。
Shimiko-san
そうですか。
tried to remember if she had done something wrong.
別に無視してるんじゃなくて、昨べだいぶ遅くまでカリカリしてたから知ってるでしょ。一度機嫌を損ねたバッチャが。
そうですね。
しばらく顔を見せない方がいい。シミコさんに悪気がなくても、バッチャは何かとこういう時は私に任せといてください。
そうですか。それは助かりますけ
シミコさん、申し訳ないんですけど、他のお手伝いさんにもしばらくバッチャの機嫌が治ったらこっそりしばらくそっとしてあげてください。
Shimiko-san bowed, then left on her bicycle. Anyone who had ever experienced Granny's wrath would understand. I headed into Mion's room, set her alarm clock for 2 p.m., and crawled into her bed. Needed to recover quickly. I had to be sharp, calm, and cool-headed. School should be out by 2 p.m. Maybe I'd get in touch with Keiichi. I'd have to call him. There'd also be a staff meeting at the Furode Shrine Assembly Hall in the evening. All the leaders of the three families, their relatives, and the town council members would gather at this meeting. They were all authority figures in Hinamizawa. I'd be attending in place of the hag who was sick. I'd worry about the rest when I got there. People shouldn't notice that Mion and the hag were missing for a long time. I didn't need to worry, as I had plenty of time. I checked the alarm once more, then fell asleep as if someone switched me off.
もしもし。
園崎の妹の方です。こんにちは。今はお時間大丈夫ですか？
シオンか。ミオンと同じで、今日は寝不足で猫。
え？ひょっとしてお姉。お姉らしい。
Keiichi had no idea that the Mion he saw earlier was actually me. He didn't notice when we talked in person, so there's no way he would notice on the phone. I never knew that playing two roles would be so much fun. To feel such enjoyment in this game of life or death. Maybe I was getting used to this situation. Or maybe my senses had gone numb.
ごめんな。ちょっと親が電話待ちをしてるんで、そんなに長話はできないんだ。何の用だ？
お話ししたいことがあったんですけど、長電話が無理じゃ仕方ないですね。
じゃあさ、会って話をし、ついでに図書館にも案内してもらえるとは。
図書館って駅前の私立図書館ですか？別にいいですよ。バイトのついでってことで。
We decided to meet in Okonomiya. It wasn't easy to get there from Hinamizawa, but I had to hurry. I couldn't run into Keiichi as he was heading there himself. I recalled that the key to the hag's motorcycle was in her secret drawer. The hag usually got driven around for public events, but when she had her own errands, she rode her motorcycle. Keiichi, I assumed, was going to ride his bicycle. I tried to get to Okonomiya before he did. Keiichi arrived quite a bit later than me. Motorcycles are faster after all. There were hardly any traffic lights to worry about on the way here either.
ミオンと違って、シオンは待ち合わせ時間を守るな。しみじみ。
お姉を標準にされるといろいろと困ります。
ん？少しフラフラし、お前も昨べは寝不足だろ。隠しても無駄だぞ。で、学校を早退したに違いない。
残念でした。私はそもそも今日はずる休みしてますので、私お姉より容量いいですから。
おいおい、学校をずる休みするのを。
じゃあ先に用事を片付けます。時間もそんなにないですから。図書館へ行くんですよね。
ああ、頼むよ。おふくろの借りてる本の返却期限、図書館は遠いのか？
すぐ近くですよ。
I meant it when I said we didn't have much time. I had to hurry a little. This is true. Oh, when she explains why she leaves so curtly when Oishi shows up. She's like, I do not have the time to deal with you. I have got to get the fuck out of here. That makes a lot of sense, actually. I was just going to talk to him on the phone, but I ended up coming all the way to Okonomiya. After our talk, Keiichi would slowly head back to Hinamizawa on his bicycle. I'd have to rush back there while making sure I didn't run into him. Otherwise, I couldn't make it on time for the meeting. Oh, and that's why she's more than happy to, like, leave Keiichi to Oishi, right? Like, oh, yeah, no. Yep, I gotta go. Got something to do. See ya, Keiichi. You deal with Oishi, because she knows Oishi's definitely going to hold him back enough to where she can zip back to Hinamizawa without, crossing paths. Okay. Maybe I could be a little late, but since I needed to hear everything they were going to discuss, I didn't want to be. This was the Shishibone Public Library. It was sizable, filled with a collection of moldy, smelly books, but they did have air conditioning and it was quiet. It was the perfect place when you wanted to be alone. After Satoshi-kun disappeared last year, I came here a lot to think about various things. This was where I first met Takano-san. I didn't want to run into her with Keiichi in tow, but then I remembered that she was already dead. The first floor of the building was occupied by government offices. The library itself was on the second floor, so we had to walk up a huge staircase to get there. I tasted cool air on my skin as soon as I walked through the automated door. Unlike outside, it was very quiet in here. The room temperature was both comfortable and suitable for books. I could smell the scent of old pages.
どこの図書館も似たようなもんだな。
Keiichi walked up to the return table after he said so. Because it was a weekday, there was hardly anyone around. It really was very quiet. I was going to chat about some ordinary things, and then move on to the main subject. After Keiichi returned the books, I invited him into the inner section of the library. Keiichi knew Mion well, but he didn't know me at all. He showed an interest in our life story. This was exactly where Takano-san told me about the true history of Hinamizawa a year ago. I was about to tell Keiichi about things that were very similar to that. Did God have a sense of irony?
言われてみれば、例のおもちゃ屋も親類の人が経営してるみたいだったな。そういえば、エンジェルモートも親類の人が経営してるんじゃないのか?
I told him the reason why the Sonozaki family was so powerful in this area. I assumed that since Keiichi came from the city, there was a good chance he couldn't even begin to understand how one old family could literally control an entire area. Unless I explained to him how powerful the Sonozaki family was, he wouldn't understand what kind of danger was barreling toward him.
特に金融不動産関係は強いですね。あと商工会議所の役員も何割かは園崎姓かその親類がついてます。沖宮一帯を評伝に市議会議員と県議会議員にも園崎がいますし。
ちょっと待て。なんだかすごい話になって、沖宮の町中に親類が経営する店があって、しかもその上商工会議所の役員の何割かが親類で、しかも地元選出の議員までいて。
Keiichi counted with his fingers. He was clearly surprised to hear all that about the Sonozaki family. It seemed he was flexible enough to accept even something that sounded outrageous to him. He was starting to understand things, although slowly. The way he viewed Shion Sonozaki was changing little by little too. That should be enough background information. I could go on to explain about Mion Sonozaki, the successor. Then I'd change the subject like Takano-san did with me. To go on to talk about the curse of Yashiro-sama, then the series of mysterious deaths.
ひょっとして園崎家ってこの辺り一帯じゃすごいんじゃ。
ねえ、すごいんです。
A fat man with a cigarette suddenly cut into our conversation. Oishi? Why was he here?
どうこんに今日はデートですかな。羨ましいですね。
そうだと思ったら邪魔しないでほしか。おいさ。
What timing? Couldn't be coincidence. I knew this man too well. He was crafty, sly, and clever. His presence here just can't be a coincidence. Did he see us somewhere in town and follow us? But why? Did he need something from me, Keiichi, or perhaps the both of us? From what I could guess, I didn't think it was me that he wanted something from. It was almost like he was trying to keep Keiichi away from me. Oishi was aware I gave false testimony to protect Satoshi-kun last year. Maybe he didn't think he could talk to Keiichi if I was around. Why did Oishi need to talk to Keiichi? It must be about the incident from yesterday. I'm sure there were plenty of plainclothes officers at the festivals, so they had to have seen who was last with the victims. In other words, Keiichi and me. But Oishi knew I was hard to deal with. That was why he was focusing on Keiichi at present. Why do you have to show up at a time like this?
前原さん、あなたもタフな園崎姉妹を二股かけるなんて。
いや、そんな二股だなんて。
Keiichi looked at me, hoping for assistance. He blushed. The way he panicked reminded me of Satoshi-kun. That aside, this wasn't going well. Oishi might even start talking about my relationship with Satoshi-kun. I didn't want him to, nor did I want Keiichi to have any preconceptions. Oishi took a quick glance at me. His eyes told me something. He was purposefully talking about the things I'd rather not talk about. He was basically telling me to leave or he'd continue on to something that was worse than what they were currently talking about. He didn't use his words, but his eyes clearly communicated that anyway. Damn that big fat weasel.
あ、ごめんなさい。私もうバイトの時間なんです。
あ、そうなのか？
I realized I wouldn't achieve anything like this, even if I stayed longer, so I used my part-time job as an excuse to leave. Oh, she looked at me and grinned. Damn it. You won today, but I'll win next time.
そういえば、今日はシオン、なんなら。
うん、また今度。あ、バイトが終わったら電話します。夜なら電話大丈夫ですよね。
ああ、大丈夫だと思う。
じゃあ、今夜電話しますので、じゃあ。
Okay. Well, she intentionally pushed her out. Interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Interesting. The hag's motorcycle had become my primary means of transportation. My next stop was the staff meeting at the Furide Shrine's assembly hall. It was easy to imagine how a normal meeting would play out if it were just celebrating the end of Watanagashi. But today's staff meeting was likely going to be strained as the Sonozaki family councils. Yes, this staff meeting was going to deal with the heart of Hinamizawa. I couldn't let my guard down, even for a moment. I rested for a while at the house, then left for the meeting. I walked up the long stairs to the Furide Shrine. At the top, I saw some elderly men smoking in front of the hall. Since they had a minor fire a long time ago, it had been made into a non-smoking area.
あれ、ミオンちゃんかい。
The head of the Kimiyoshi family, Uncle Kimiyoshi, noticed me and waved. He must not have expected Mion to come alone. Normally, it would have been either the hag by herself or Mion tagging along as an assistant.
バッチャは、夕べのあれ以来、誰も近づけず、布団にこもりきりです。
They all understood how troublesome she was in a bad mood. They smiled bitterly in sympathy.
じゃあ今日はミオンちゃんがお嬢さんから話とか聞いて。
一応。
What did he mean, has Oryo-san told you anything? That line by itself didn't really explain much. The staff meeting was usually led by the mayor, the head of the Kimiyoshi family. He'd asked me, as the substitute for the Sonozaki family head, if I'd heard anything from her. I then realized who was supposed to lead today's staff meeting.
おじじゃなくて、今日の会合だけど、司会、私じゃないと。
According to the ranking order at the family councils, any substitute for the Sonozaki family head is above the Kimiyoshi family head. In other words, I'd have to lead today's meeting. There's no way I could do that.
大丈夫だ。ミオンちゃんは座ってればいいよ。お嬢さんから聞いてる話があったら話してくれればいいからね。
村長、そろそろ始めますかいね。全員揃いましたね。
The smokers put out their cigarettes and went back into the hall. The tables were set in a horseshoe shape, and I was told to sit next to the chair reserved for the chief. The seat opposite mine was empty. Considering its location, it was probably for the Furide family head, Rika Furide. Somebody had said earlier that everybody was already here. Either Rika-chama had called in absent, or the empty seat was just a formality. Knowing the subject of this meeting, I don't think that the Furide family head would even want to attend. Even if Rika-chama actually attended, she wouldn't be able to say anything. All she'd usually do at the Sonozaki family councils was drop pictures on a notepad. She'd probably end up drawing pictures in this meeting too. Besides, they probably didn't want her to hear anything unpleasant. In this way, the empty Furide family seat was easily explained. When everyone was seated, the head of the Women's Association served tea. She gave me an evil look, trying to tell me to help out. I got up and did so. After that, everyone fell quiet and the secretary stood up.
それでは皆さん、本日は大変お忙しい中、緊急にお集まりいただきまして、それでは初めに村長さんからご挨拶をいただきます。村長、どうぞ。
座ったままで失礼します。ケンちゃんも座ったままでいいよ。今日は平日の夕方にお集まりいただきまして、また昨日は綿流しを本当にお疲れ様でございました。おかげさまで本年も事故もなく、祭りにも村中から大勢がいらっしゃり、来たの何人だっけ？大本営発表だと5000人だそうです。
Oh, damn. Everyone laughed except
今
me.
後もますますの文化の向上のために一丸となって頑張ってまいりたいと思います。よろしくお願いいたします。
An applause with only 8 people doesn't sound so great.
それでは引き続き、本日の議事を 君吉村長さんに承認していただける方は拍手でご承認ありがとうございます。それではただいま万座でのご承認をいただきましたんで、よろしくお願いします。
どうもケンちゃんお疲れ。では司会を引き継ぎましたので、申し訳ない。カーテン閉めましょうかね。
Everyone closed the curtains nearest to them. The sun was still up, but with all the curtains closed, the room became very dark. The village chief explained the details of the incident, as well as what went on with the police. The police vehicle discovered Tomitaki-san's body on its way back to Okonomiya last night. Oishi's special curse unit was standing by, expecting something to happen for the 5th time, so they responded quickly. Since Tomitaki-san and Takano-san were rarely apart, Oishi got in touch with the neighboring prefectural police departments and asked them to look for her. As a result, they found a burned body of a woman in the mountains of the Gifu prefecture, and the body was then identified as Mio Takano. Considering the circumstances, the police ended up labeling the incident as the 5th of the ongoing series of mysterious deaths. When he finished, there was dead silence. I watched to see who would speak first. Nobody said a thing. Then, I noticed Kimiyoshi-san looking at me. Ah, this is where the head of the Sonozaki family would speak.
Mion-chan, お嬢さんは何か言ってたかい?
Everyone looked in my direction. I was sure they could see the hag in me.
園崎家当主代行、本日はよろしくお願いいたします。
I became Mion. I tried to become as cold and unfeeling as the Mion I witnessed a year ago. That cold version of Mion was inside of me. That was me. I was her.
不幸にして大変悲しいことです。
Everyone was held captive by my words. I wasn't a little girl anymore. The hag was speaking through my mouth. They all heard me and trembled in fear.
どうして今年もわかる方はいますか?
After my question, everyone whispered to each
そ
other.
う、西宮殿の金を犯し、土足で聖域を踏み荒らして汚れを持ち込んだからです。
何いうことだ?
A few elderly men got up and yelled.
本当に信じられん小僧どもだ。腹渡引き裂いても、お社様、お怒りをおし、なんてこと、お社様。これだからよそもなすっか。なんも考えねえ。ガクガクもないよ。あれすってれんこってなるね。バチ当たりどもんが。
The angry old men yelled even as they trembled in fear. Their sudden change scared me more than a little. Even Uncle Kimiyoshi, who was usually so gentle and sweet, became like a demon of war, cursing those who broke the rule of the ritual storehouse. It became like a raging ocean inside the assembly hall. Their yells spun about like a whirlpool. They roared, crashed, and howled. Even while doing nothing but watch, I could feel myself turning pale. Mion threatened me yesterday, and Kasai had been shocked this morning. What I saw before me was similar to that. Even the sweet and gentle Uncle Kimiyoshi was saying they deserved to die. I was fearful of the sudden change in those elderly men. More than anything, the fact that they all believed that those people deserved to die for trespassing is what terrified me. It wasn't just that, of course. The real thing I was scared of was that I was one of the people they wanted dead. In other words, it was almost like they were telling me to die of the curse. If they were to find out I snuck into the ritual storehouse, it was very possible that they would strangle me on the spot. Actually, they might not kill me that easily. By then, I was certain. The people in this room were true believers in Oyashiro-sama, just like the hag. They wouldn't hesitate to murder whoever made Oyashiro-sama angry on his behalf. Even if they didn't carry out the killing themselves, they would pretend they didn't see anything. Yes, not if my head was cut off right in front of them. Everyone here would act in collusion and say I never attended today. If they all testified that they waited and I didn't show, I'd be demoned away. It'd be far too easy for them to erase someone and have them disappear. There was no mistake. People linking the hag and the curse were definitely here at this meeting. I continued speaking. I was Mion Sonozaki. I was on the side responsible for the curse. Therefore, at that moment, I didn't need to worry about anything. Nobody could tell the difference between Mion and me. That's what would keep me safe.
お静かに。
ほら、静かに静かに。
Uncle Kimiyoshi helped me to quiet everyone, but his tone was violent. He really scared me. Everyone gradually became silent.
西宮殿に忍び込んだ族、あと2人います。
People once more became restless upon hearing that, but Uncle Kimiyoshi yelled at them and they settled
富
down.
武さんと高野さんは、お社様のたたりが直ちに下りましたが、まだたたりは免れていますが、何のけじめもなく許されることはありません。
Everyone stayed quiet that time. They had all turned genuinely pale, trying not to miss a word I said. After all, they were all thinking that the kids I mentioned could be their own relatives, or even grandchildren. They wanted to know who they were to put their minds at ease.
その二人の狼藉者は、そして前原圭一。
I could feel the air getting drier. It was so dry it almost felt like it was going to start making a crackling noise.
園崎潮、すでに。
I couldn't even hear the old people breathe. I took a peek at Uncle Kimiyoshi, who was sitting next to me. He'd adored Shion as if she were his own granddaughter, but she had been demoned away. I wanted to see how distressed and sad he'd look, and when I saw his face, I felt a sensation on my back, as if my skin itself was making a cracking noise. He didn't even have an expression on his face. Uncle Kimiyoshi adored me. I loved him, and I thought he loved me too. That's why I expected him to be saddened after learning that I met with such a cruel fate. What was I thinking? The memory of his warm smile shattered inside of me. There was no way of describing the fear I experienced in that moment. In mere words, he had suddenly changed into someone I didn't even recognize. Uncle Kimiyoshi noticed me looking at him and spoke.
まだです。
I had to take a deep breath to regain my composure.
西宮殿を犯した4人、前原圭一も例外ではありませんよ。
Chilling looks, cruel looks, emotionless looks, shrewd looks, and the looks of people who were about to snap. I could feel the demons chewing my words while they stared at me with their sharp eyes. I could see some of them sticking their snake-like tongues in and out. I could see flames in some of their eyes. They were memorizing the names of the intruder the curse had yet to fall upon. And so, the meeting went on. We were told not to tell the police too much, to report what they asked us, and to hold another meeting whenever something of significance happened. If something unexpected took place, we were to get in touch with either the head of the Kimiyoshi family or the head of the Sonozaki family for instructions on what to do. With those closing remarks, the meeting was over. Okay. Well, it definitely explains why Shion's able to kind of like, you know, overcome her reservations about killing Kimiyoshi for sure. Saying that he genuinely did not care that, you know, Shion had died, quote unquote. I'm sure she definitely has no issues then about, you know, kidnapping him and eventually taking him out. It was already getting dark outside. Being in a valley surrounded by mountains, once the sun went down in Hinamizawa, it got dark quickly. Even if it was hot during the day, it'd cool down quickly at night. The elderly people said goodbye to each other and left on their bicycles, on their motorcycles, or in their cars. Uncle Kimiyoshi waved them goodbye and started to head home himself. I called out to him.
君吉さん、この後ご予定はありますか?
I called him Kimiyoshi-san instead of Uncle Kimiyoshi. He stopped.
いや、何もない。
家へ寄ってもらえます。
お嬢さんが。
はい、直接会って話したいことがあるんだとか。
じゃあ、やるかな。
Uncle Kimiyoshi arrived at the Sonozaki house. Stun gun? He often came to the house to have secret meetings with the hag, so he wasn't suspicious at all. I invited Uncle Kimiyoshi into the living room. I served him a cup of tea and told him I was going to fetch the hag. I left the room and killed some time down the hallway. Stun gun?
ばっちゃ、気がちょっと時間かかる。
ゆっくり待ってるから。
Uncle Kimiyoshi relaxed as he sipped his cup of tea. I sat next to
多
him.
分。
I mentioned my name and watched for his reaction. Uncle Kimiyoshi looked so grim. Couldn't even tell if he heard me. I decided to continue speaking until he reacted in some way.
シオンは去年北条家の人間なんかと。
去年は、爪を剥いで。
ええ、3枚剥いで。
Uncle Kimiyoshi folded his arms and thought for a
シ
while.
オンちゃんは
地下にいます。
様子はどうなんだい？
Uncle Kimiyoshi sounded worried. When I heard that, I felt relieved that Uncle Kimiyoshi was on my side. His anger in the assembly hall was just an act, or was it?
ずっと泣いてい。
ミオンちゃん、率直なところ、お嬢さんはシオンちゃんのこと。
具体的なことは聞いてます。ご存知と思いますけど。
西宮殿に入っ、しかも自分とこの身内がな。そりゃそうだろうな。
Uncle Kimiyoshi thought the hag must be unsure of what to do with
お
Shion.
じいちゃんは。
そりゃ、爪3枚よりもっとむごいことになるだろう。お嬢さんのことだから、むしろ身内だからこそ 厳しく当たるだろうからな。
何しろそれは許されないことで。
さすが西宮。
でもだって西宮殿の不可侵性は知ってはいたでしょうが。
確かにシオンちゃんは不憫だよ。
私か背中の入れ墨を見る以外に何もない。ミオンとシオンなんて区別自体が何の意味もないのに。
Twins are proof of bad luck. One should be eliminated as soon as they're born, such is the family precept. The hag actually put her hands around my neck right after I came out of the womb. That's how the story went, at least. In the end, the hag didn't kill me, but instead pretended I didn't exist. She forced herself to call one of us Mion, the other Shion. She adored Mion and hated Shion. My sister and I never understood why we had to go through that. We didn't care who was Mion or Shion. So one day we came up with an idea. We decided to share the joy Mion experienced and the sadness Shion experienced. We often switched places. We were both Mion, and at the same time, we were both Shion. Adults around us tried to put different clothes on us or style our hair differently so they could tell us apart. That was nonsense. No matter what they did to us, all we had to do was switch places. Nobody could tell us apart. Finally decided that we switched places because we were always together. On that day, Shion got to go to an amusement park. Since then, we've been separated.
ミオンちゃん。
Oh?
私にはシオンがどういう将軍になるか、そしてどんなことに決まってもバッチャは身内であれば無視。
そうだね。お嬢さんの悪いと。
シオンは園崎シオンでなければ死に準ずる罰が果たしてどのようなものか。殺されなかったにしたって、つまりは
ミオンちゃん、シオンちゃんは反省してる。
ええ。
In response, Uncle Kimiyoshi tapped my shoulder and slapped his own chest. He smiled reliably.
大丈夫。シオンちゃんがちゃんと反省してるなら、君吉のおじいちゃんに任せなさい。
本当に大丈夫なん？
そりゃあお嬢さんは私でもおじいちゃんはシオンちゃんがしっかり反省してるんだから許してあげてほしいってちゃんと頼んでみせるから。
Damn. That's gotta fucking kill your resolve. Cause like, damn. You essentially get told like, I'd go to bat for her. I'd do whatever it takes to make sure she, gets out of this okay. Tears began to fall from my eyes. I knew it. Uncle Kimiyoshi was my ally after all. So how do you I mean, clearly you're gonna have to do something, you know? I know you have to do something at some point. Because I know he does not make it home. He said he would forgive Shion. He was my ally. I'm so very
本
happy.
当に去年の北条聡君みたいに鬼隠しになっちゃったりしないでしょうか？
Uncle Kimiyoshi smiled reliably again and told me.
罰当たりの北条家の坊主ならいざ知れず。
Oh,
園崎家のシオンちゃんならきっと許して
all
もらえ
that
るって。
goodwill out the fucking window. Damn, what a terrible sentence to open with. He was a brat of the Hojo family. Oh, fuck. Oh, he doesn't know it, but damn, poor choice of words there, big dog. Stun gun. Huh? Yep. That instant snap.
北条家の坊主って去年の犠牲者。
北条の連村を丸ごと売ろうとしたそういう奴らなら鬼隠しだってありえるだろうけど、そりゃ北条家だからの話だ。
Damn. Oh, you were almost in the clear, Kibiyoshi. You could have had a chance. Like, Shion might have come up with some bullshit excuse of like, Oreo decided that she didn't want to fucking deal with you anymore, or some bullshit, whatever. Get out of here. You could have had a chance, but no, Yeah, you had to cross that line. Her whole reason for doing any of this in the first place. You had to cross that line. Oh, but I'm sorry to hear it. Stun gun. Huh? 北条家の連中は
鬼隠しに会うのはそういう連中なんだから。だからしおんちゃんは大丈夫。大丈夫なんだよ。
おじいちゃん、でもサトシ君は去年
けじめなんの？
ほら爪を3枚笠井さん、吉郎おじさん、それからサト3枚。
3枚ってそういう意味だったのかい？
あの3枚は。
いや、関わった人間が3人。そう、私。でも笠井さん、吉郎、それからしおんちゃんで3枚だと聞いてたよ。
Oh. The third nail was for herself, and she had no intention of forgiving. Oh. Okay. Eh? What? Huh? What? I endured excruciating pain. The first one was my left pinky, then the ring finger, and then the middle finger. People held me down so I couldn't move. But I endured. I had to endure 3 nails. I didn't know which nail was for Satoshi-kun. If my middle finger was for Satoshi-kun, I'd have to endure it until the middle finger was done so that Satoshi-kun would be forgiven. That was why I endured. Even Mion said afterwards, everything was forgiven. Huh? Yeah, she forgave you, but not him. She forgave you for being involved with him, but that wasn't excusing him from anything. Oh, shit. Mion, didn't you say Satoshi-kun was forgiven? Didn't you? That's what I heard. I think that's what I heard. Or did I? Huh? I felt the air move. There shouldn't have been a breeze in that room, but I felt it anyway. The cool air stroked the back of my neck. That was when my true self stood right behind me and nodded. Although there was no wind, my hair billowed. The burning wickedness buried deep inside my eyes became visible.
どうして北条サトシ君はサトシ君のご両親はお社様のたたりが。でもそのサトシ君にサトシ君にどんな罪が。あなたはさっきバチあたり鬼隠しにあっても当然などんな罪があったのかと聞いているのです。
Kimiyoshi didn't know what to say to the sudden question. He seemed dismayed.
聞かずともわかります。園崎お涼がお社様のたたりが及ぶの。
まあ別に
決めたわけでは。
そうだよ。北条家にはお社、そういう話をおぼろげにしたことはあった。
ではさっきという言葉は。
あれは
そういうこと。北条家なら何があって北条の名を冠していればどうなろうが知ったことではないと。サトシ君に罪があろうがなかろうが北条、そういう考えが蔓延している。そしてあなたはその蔓延でいぶされた汚れた思考に汚染された迷信盲信。許せない。お前のような存在が許せない。お前のような奴がサトシ君たち一家を追い詰めてあんなにもすり減らして。サトシ君がかわいそう。本当にかわいそう。彼が何をしたの？何もしてない。何もやってない。ただ北条であっただけ。それにどんな罪が罰がたたりが呪いがどうして降りかからねばならなかったのか。一体サトシ君に何の罪があったというのか。
Girl, just hit him with the stun gun already. Quit your blabbering. Kimiyoshi's upper body bent backward and fell onto the floor. That was that. Put my stun gun back in my pocket. Good. Fucking sitting here ranting and raving about Satoshi like, yeah, no, I get it. You have your motivation to do it, so now, do it.
ごめん、しお、今なんて。
ゆうべ高野さんと富武さんが高野さんは焼死体で富武さんは自殺みたいな感じで今朝知ったんです。お父さんが親類の人からの電話で話してるのを聞いて。
As I thought, Keiichi didn't know anything about what happened after the festival last night.
マスコミに報道されないのは当然なんです。過去にそうだったから。
Keiichi insisted that unless he heard about it on the news, it couldn't be real. But the investigations into the series of mysterious deaths are done in secret now. Of course, he didn't hear about it on the news.
村長とか あと園崎家出身の金バッジが警察に思いっきり圧力をかけたんだって聞いて。
じゃあつまり2人の死は秘密裏に処理されてしまったと。
そういうことです。もちろん警察は捜査をしてますよ。でも秘匿捜査ということなので捜査活動にはかなりの制限が加えられているそうです。これは事実上の捜査妨害と言えるでしょうね。
信じられない。人が死んだのにそれが公にされずひそやかに処理されるなんて。
もっと噛み砕いて言う。綿流しの夜に誰が死んでも公にはならないということです。
そんなバカな話があって。
ケイちゃん、私以前にお社様のたたりは村人が起こしてるかもしれないって、つまりそういうことなんです。このひなみ沢では毎年綿流しの夜にお社様のたたりということにして誰かを殺してもいい土壌がいつの間にか作り上げられているんです。
Yes, that's the truth about the series of mysterious deaths in Inamizawa, also known as the Yashiro-sama's curse. On the day of Watanagashi, 2 people will be killed. The perpetrators are using the curse of Yashiro-sama as an excuse to kill one victim and make another disappear. That's why the curse of Yashiro-sama takes place. That's what happens in Hinamizawa, and that's what happens with the curse. What Kimiyoshi said is all true. Infecting everyone with the idea that the enemy from the dam conflict deserved to die was the root of all this. That was the system of vague commands used in the Sonozaki family, created by its head, Oryo. One thing that must be mentioned about that command system is that the person giving the orders and the one executing them didn't need to interact in any way. Though Oryo was the commander, she never gave actual orders. She only had to expect something to happen. Every single one of the family council members around her would want to satisfy that expectation if given the chance. They didn't have to be proactive about satisfying it. They could be passive too. When the chance arose, anyone who knew Orio's intentions could potentially become the one to execute her orders. Therefore, Orio would never know who actually executed her order, and none of the relatives knew it either. But they all knew things would conclude just as Orio wanted, and they could assume it was one of their own who did it for her. This passive support system was thoroughly effective, and it spread all over the village. Its ties became even tighter than the dam conflict. After the dam conflict, anyone could be the one to execute Orio's orders. Therefore, everyone supported each other. If someone did something, then the others would try to satisfy Orio's expectation in different ways. For example, they'd come up with false evidence or otherwise passively interfere with an investigation. Even if they didn't know exactly who they were protecting, they'd still work together to protect whoever it was. Yes, I had finally figured out how it all worked. Phrased in a more organized manner, it would go as follows. The system of killing 2 people who are unwanted by the village each year required 3 elements. The first element was a region of solidarity. It was created during the long and unique history of Hinamizawa. The villagers' bonds became even tighter during the dam conflict. That was one of the conditions for this place to have a curse. It was an element that was already in the region, not one that could be created. The next element was having the same moral standards. This was a very important element, as the curse wouldn't have happened without it. Also, this element was created by Oryo Sonozaki herself, and that was why she could claim that this system was established by her own will. Having the same moral standards means that everyone everywhere acknowledges the same enemy. Even when everyone in the village joined together, it would be meaningless if they all didn't know exactly who the enemy was. During the dam conflict, Oryo Sonozaki made the identity of the enemy very clear to everyone. They couldn't just say that they were against the dam's construction and that the government was their enemy. That wasn't clear enough. The government didn't really pinpoint who the enemy was. But Oryo made enemies out of the construction site itself, and therefore its manager. She chose targets that the villagers could see with their own eyes. They were clear and easy to understand. The villagers acknowledged that everyone at the dam construction site was their enemy, and that construction site manager was the enemy commander. Using the same method, she labeled one after another as an enemy of the village, practically cataloging a list of enemies to print into the villagers' minds. Earlier, I'd used the term infecting for this phenomenon. Those infected by this idea were the people unconsciously giving the orders to commit murder. When the infection spread across the village, when all of Hinamizawa's residents acknowledged the same enemy, that was when Hinamizawa itself became a murderer. Oryo combined those 2 elements, a solidary region, and having the same moral standards, then selected the enemy and spread that notion throughout the village. The law would normally have punished both the one who committed the crime and the one who gave the order. But Oryo's system didn't require an order at all. Oryo just had to become concerned about the enemy she had pre-selected. But that alone wouldn't cause the curse to take place. Oryo's concern was likely a safety device, and even when the safety device was off, the curse wouldn't occur unless there was a finger to pull the trigger. The last necessary element was to set a date for execution. The night of Watanagashi. The night to venerate Oyashiro-sama, the guardian deity of Hinamizawa. On that night, the curse of Oyashiro-sama falls upon two enemies of the village, and they disappear. Everyone in the village acknowledged that as a fact. In other words, if the same incident took place on any of the other 364 nights of the year, it would be nothing other than a murder case. But if it happened on the night of Watanagashi, then it would transform into the curse of Oyashiro-sama. The idea that villagers are allowed to kill their enemies on the night of Watanagashi had infected them. The villagers were the cells of this huge creature called Hinamizawa, and each cell would be taught who the enemy was. The set date was basically a green light for whoever was in the best position to kill the enemy. That was the truth of the curse of Oyashiro-sama. Therefore, the one who actually killed Satoshi-kun isn't my enemy. The one who set up this murderous system, and the one who named Satoshi-kun's family as the enemy, is my enemy. To use a broader definition, Hinamizawa itself, and the very system of Oyashiro-sama's curse, is my enemy. I already killed the hag, the one who designed the system. Kimiyoshi, the one whose job it was to infect the villagers with the system, was already in my hands. I just had to find out who else was involved, and how much. It was like pulling a weed while being very careful not to break its roots. I announced that Keiichi Maibara was one of the people who snuck into the shrine storage. I was certain that fact had already spread throughout the underside of the village. In other words, Keiichi Maibara was an object of the curse of Oyashiro-sama now. Takano-san and Tomitake-san were found dead, having been killed in gruesome ways. That was the curse of Oyashiro-sama. In that case, they could demon away 2 more people as sacrifices to calm the anger of Oyashiro-sama. The set date for the curse was already over, but just like what happened to Satoshi-kun, demoning away was allowed a little extra time. Something would happen to Keiichi Maibara within a few days. I'd wait patiently, careful not to let my enemies simply take Keiichi Maibara, my bait. Keiichi had been yelling on the other end of the phone for some time. He kept yelling that he didn't want to go into the ritual storehouse to begin with. He claimed he was simply invited by Takano-san and me. He shouldn't be in danger because of that, he said. He was feeling a sense of crisis and tension. This was going to work. The livelier the bait, the easier it is to spot. Shut up. I've heard enough of your pitiful tears. Yeah, and like when she hung up the first time, you thought it was because she felt overwhelmed because he was placing all the blame on her. Meanwhile, she's like, oh god, just enough. I hung up the phone. There was no point in talking to him when he got like that. Besides, I'd already achieved my goal, which was to make him realize the danger awaiting him. I took a deep breath, then called the house of the village chief.
はい、君吉です。
園崎です。どうです？村長さんは見つかりましたか？
ああ、片っ端から電話をかけてみたけど見つからないんだ。参ったな。どこで油売ってるのかな。
こっちでも心当たりにいろいろと問い合わせましたけど、全然。
Yeah, and that explains why Mion's always like, all tired and ragged and whatnot. They always say it's because she was out late at night looking for, whoever was missing, whether it was Kimiyoshi or Rika or whatever. Meanwhile, it's because she was up late, fucking torturing them in the basement.
バッチャにも相談したんですが、青年団を招集して探し回った方がいいだろうということで。
こんな時間にかい。それに別に行方不明になったと決まっ。
綿流しの直後ですから、少し慎重に扱った方がいいとのこと。それでも見つからないなら、明朝見つかる見つからないは別にして、痛くない腹を探られない方がいいでしょうから。
お嬢さんが。
はい。直接声を聞かないと信用で。
いえ、わかりました。青年団を集めて探しましょう。それで見つからなければ、翌朝に警察に通報します。
青年団の連絡も、私もバッチャの代行ということでそちらに参ります。
すぐにみんなを集めます。
ええ、では。
The youth group had gathered at the Huride shrine. They were going to try to find the mayor. I also had to go in the absence of the hag. Just to be mean, I stopped by the underground torture room to let the mayor know that I was headed to the Huride shrine to search for him. Incidentally, according to the tab on the keychain, this underground torture room was actually called the Underground Storehouse for ritual implements. This was the man who was yelling that whoever trespasses on the ritual storehouse should be killed. Although it was an underground ritual storehouse, he was there now, atoning for what he had done. It was pretty ironic. Maybe I was the only one who felt that way, though.
君吉のおじいちゃん、お具合はいかがですか？
Kimiyoshi didn't say a word, but he made a noise with the
今
chain.
ね、村中でおじいちゃんの姿が見えなく、おじいちゃんの家から相談が来たので、青年団を招集して捜索を行うことにしました。これから行ってくるところです。
Was this mean or what? Kimiyoshi could only make noise with the chain. He couldn't even express any emotion other than anguish.
二人、私の質問にちゃんと答えてくれるたびに、そうですね。あと3個も長くなれば、だいぶ楽になる。
Kimiyoshi's hands were tied behind his back with a tight wire. He was wearing a leather collar with a chain, which was strapped tightly around his neck, too. The collar's chain was on a pulley attached to the ceiling, with the chain pulling him up toward it. That chain was very short and pulled very tight. Kimiyoshi had to stand on tiptoes to be able to breathe. He had been like that for almost an hour already. He was already exhausted. If I left him overnight, he'd probably end up hanging himself.
さっきは知らない。もう一回尋ねます。北条聡くんについてああ、ごめん。喋りたくてもじゃあ、私とおしゃべりの間だけ、ちょっと緩めましょう。
I turned the pulley just a little to loosen the chain that was pulling on Kimiyoshi's neck. Kimiyoshi's heels finally touched the ground, relieving the pressure on his muscles.
知らないんだよ。本当に。
聡くんが生きてるのか
おじいちゃんは。
ま、ひなみ沢のたたりのシステムは、おじいちゃんが知らないというのもある。なら聞き方を変えます。聡くんがどうなってるのか。聡くんは死んでる？
Kimiyoshi didn't know what to say. If he said he didn't know, I'd tighten the chain and leave the room. That'd be like a death sentence for him. But all I said is that I wanted him to speak as the head of the Kimiyoshi family, and ask him to tell the truth. But he didn't know what to say to avoid souring my mood and to get me to loosen the chains around him. He was obviously trying to figure out how to make me extend the chain.
生きてるんじゃないか。
ああ、新幹線。
警察が東京で姿を見たというようなのを聞いた覚えが。
She had told me that Satoshi-kun had been a witness getting on a bullet train heading to Tokyo at Nagoya Station. But the police didn't know if it really happened or what became of Satoshi-kun after that. Therefore, this was simply a random assertion of Kimiyoshi's.
ねえ。呪われた一族、北条家の人間をわざわざ失踪なんていう凝った消し方をないんじゃないですか？それに、その東京で警察が見たという情報ソースを教えてください。私は大石と一時期連絡を密にしていましたが、おじいちゃん、私の機嫌を取ろうとしていい加減なことを言ったなら、かえって怒っちゃいますよ。
I reached for the pulley controlling the chains around Kimiyoshi, and that act alone sent him panicking as he feared the tightening once more.
ごめんよ。別にシオンちゃんを怒らせようなんてつもりはないんだよ。
私、君吉のおじいちゃんに、サトシ君のことを調べる協力をお願いしてるだけ。
わかってる。ちゃんと真面目に考えるから。
I took my hand off the pulley. Seeing that, Kimiyoshi began making loud groaning noises to try and show he was thinking hard.
ズバリ、生きていると思います。死んでいると思い。
生きてると考えるのは難しいんじゃないかと。
ですよね。生かしておくことで伴う私だって同感ですし。
I really didn't mean anything too deep by it, but what I said truly scared Kimiyoshi.
警察は、おば殺しの犯人がサトシ君で、サトコの誕生日プレゼントを買うために貯めてた貯金で逃亡したと。この辺、どう思います？
でも、その犯人。
あれ、私は、私がこう言うのも変だけど、サトシ君がおば殺しの犯人だって信じてるんですよ。あいつは、例えばばあさんあたりに買収されて仕立て上げら。
それはおじいちゃんも突然ひょっこりと腑に落ちなかった。
やっぱり身代わり？
多分そう。
何のためにだと？
警察はサトシ君が犯人だと思ってサトシ君を。警察の捜査がいつまでも続くのは面白くなかったんじゃないかな。
What Kimiyoshi just said is very interesting. He's perfectly correct. If the police continued their investigation, it would complicate things for whoever demoned away Satoshi-kun. Therefore, the hag came up with a decoy in order to bring an end to the investigation.
でも、そんな犯人のでっち上げなんて、そうそう簡単にできることじゃないですよ。
お嬢さん以外にはそんなことは。
ばあさんが裏の世界で相当の力を持ってるというの、そんなにもあったんですね。
シオンちゃんだっていろいろとダム戦争の頃から噂は聞いてるだろうし、中には実際に直接聞いたものもあるんじゃないかい？
During the dam protests, I actually saw them issuing orders to my relatives, like destroy their heavy machinery, or can we set up a checkpoint to blockade their construction vehicles? They set free their comrades from the police by coming up with alibis, destroying or forging evidence. I had seen relatives do those things, as well as the hag calling in counselors to the house to protest. As a child, I was pretty impressed. But when I thought back, it was more than that. She was truly the mastermind who controlled the underside of the world.
シオンちゃんだって建設省の幹部の息子というか建設大臣のあれの誘拐事件の話は知ってるだろう。
あれってやっぱ誘拐だったんですか？孫が鬼隠しになって高津戸だか矢河内だかの山奥で見つかったって話は知ってたんですけどね。
あれはお嬢さんの指図によるものだよ。ダム工事の中止の約束が取り付けられたんで孫を釈放したっていうのはおじいちゃんたち旧同盟の幹部ならみんな知ってる。
身近にいすぎて私がよく分かってなかっただけで、やっぱりばあさんとか御三家とか旧同盟って大したもんだったんですね。怖い怖い。
Kimiyoshi finally realized the situation he was in, and he was answering my questions. That made me happy, but the more Kimiyoshi told me the truth, the more I realized Satoshi-kun really was dead. That made me very sad.
サトシ君を鬼隠しにした。
わからない。それに誰が実際にやったかは問わないのが不分律だったから。
He was right. That was how the system worked. And so that was a bad
誰
question.
がやったにせよ、だって人を殺して
誰が殺したか。例えば死体の処理をお嬢さん今いるここの奥に。
ああ、どこかの山中に埋めるくらいならここの井戸に捨てる方が絶対に安全ですもんね。
Whoever disappears becomes a sacrifice to calm the anger of Yashiro-sama. That was the rule of this game. Therefore, the bodies must never be discovered. That's why the bodies had to be dumped somewhere nobody could find them. It's very possible that the well was used for that. Then, Satoshi-kun is at the bottom of that well. I grabbed a flashlight and headed to the huge cave with all the cells. As I turned on the lights in the cave, Mion noticed me and gave me a worried look. I ignored her and headed to the cell in the back. I was still very impressed at how well this was hidden. It was almost artistic. I shone the flashlight at the bottom of the well. I had no way of knowing how deep the well was. The light of the flashlight wasn't strong enough to reach the bottom. I inhaled, then screamed into the well.
サトシ君。
Satoshi-kun's name echoed again and again. It was obviously a very deep well. I thought of climbing down using the wedges on the wall. With the flashlight hanging from my neck, I couldn't light my footing properly. And even if there was enough lighting, I didn't even know if the wedges were sturdy enough. It would be like committing suicide. Oh, you don't say. Satoshi-kun was at the bottom of this well. That's when I felt it. A warm hand rubbed my head, for sure. Shion, you finally found me. Satoshi-kun. I've been looking for you for so long. I'm sorry I couldn't find you while you were still alive. Sorry. I'm sorry. It's not your fault, Shion. There was nothing you could have done before I was killed. But you did everything you could do after I was dead. Satoshi-kun, I want to join you. Okay, that makes sense. Once she realizes that, like, the jig is up, yeah. She hears, like, Oishi and them, like, trying to break into the basement after, she starts, or tries to start torturing on Keiichi. She didn't climb down with the thoughts of escaping. In fact, she might not have even started climbing down in the first place. She might have just fucking jumped. Just dove head first. I'm coming right now. I'm going to jump, so please catch me. Satoshi-kun smiled bitterly. I was saddened to see him reject me. Shion, I'm happy that you found me. But you're alive, Shion. It's so important to be alive. You can't waste it. If you aren't here, I don't want to live. I want to be with you, Satoshi-kun. I want to be close to you. I want you to rub my head again. I want to spend time with you. I'll be a good girl. I want to be with you. Live. Do I have to? Live and enjoy your life, okay? What's so fun about living alone? You'll find out, so long as you're alive.
生きるよ生きる
The eerie well now felt warm. I wasn't allowed to go down to the bottom, but the edge of this well was the place where you and I could meet. Creepy.
ミオンサトシ君見つけた井戸の底なんだね。そうだとそこしかないもん。
Mion started to sob.
ミオンはサトシ君が殺されるところにはもし居合わせサトシ君を許してもらえるよう絶対にする。せめて命だけはって。嘘だ。え
Oh.
嘘だ
On that day, a year ago, I just recalled how cruel Mion was then, when she forced me to rip out my nails, acting in her role as the successor. Even if she was there when Satoshi-kun was killed, she wouldn't have stopped being the successor. Satoshi-kun was brought to the torture room. When he saw Mion, I'm sure he thought she would save him. Even as he heard the family head read out his death sentence, I'm sure he looked at Mion and believed that she would save him. He believed Mion was acting that way only because she was with her relatives. He believed she would help him, but she didn't do anything. He was strapped to a restraining device, yet she still wouldn't do anything. Mion was cruel. Mion? Isn't it about time to help me? I see. I get it. You're with the rest of the family members, so you can't even show a hint of compassion. That sucks.
助けろなんでサトシ君の助けを懇願するまで。あんたはサトシ君が意地悪オーバーのせいで追いつあんたは同情する素振りを見せるだけで助けなかった。あんたがサトシ君を助けな私は救おうと頑張ったよ。あんたらがサトシ君のおば殺しをかばわない。私は彼のアリバイのために水でもねそれだけの届かなかった。だってシオンはひなみ沢から遠ざけられていて何からも戸ざまで。でもあんたは違う。あんたはミオンだった。あんたはひなみ沢のうちにいて全ての中心で全てを教えられて全てを知ることができた。私があんただったらきっとサトシ君を救えた。私なら救う。あんたがミオン返してミオン。もともとミオンはあんただけのもんじゃ私のものでも。それにもともとミオンは私のじゃない。私があんたに貸してあげるようになっただけで本当は私のだったじゃない。返せ私のミオンを返お前がミオンの外見をしているだけでも無実が。お前じゃなく私がミオンだったら
I kicked the bars. I kicked them again and again. So is the one we know as Shion the one who actually has the tattoo on her? Oh wow. So even if in chapter 2, if I were to go back to rewatch the footage, even if they were using names going based off how this scene is going, it really seems like she, takes the name back in her own right. But that would also make sense as to how the police were able to properly identify Mion's body at the bottom of the well. Because the one who actually had the tattoo was the one we knew as Shion. Damn. That's crazy if true. Mion curled up fearfully in the back of the cell, as if she were trying to prevent the bars from crashing down onto her. Damn. Page 188, what do we got? After that, I joined the youth group in the search for Kimiyoshi. Went down the town's council's phone directory and called to see if he had visited, then had the group split according to the circular notice divisions and sent them to search the town. Everybody seemed to be assuming they wouldn't find him, but since I knew they definitely never would, it was just bothersome to me. Even after midnight, they were all still enthusiastically looking for him. I bore the sleepiness while yawning. Then I heard somebody whisper, "Last year, we did the same thing when Satoshi Hojo-kun went missing. The youth group was looking for someone who would never be found. Just like last year." I was yawning because I knew this. Last year there must have also been some people who were yawning and grinning on the inside.
去年の捜索って。
ありゃ何時だ。
午前の0時過ぎくらいには解散したような気がするな。
It was already 2 in the morning. Oh, fuck. Although they spent this much time searching for Kimiyoshi, they didn't do the same when Satoshi-kun went missing. After all, some people knew they wouldn't find him. They must have been sleepy. They must have said they should leave it to the police. Shit. I want to kill the people who said that. Makes sense.
あれれ、みーちゃんもなんだか寝不足な方よ。
寝たの3時くらい。眠い。
3時？おいおい、夜更かしにも限度ってもんがあるぞ。大方漫画の単行本が面白くなっちゃって一巻から読破してしまったん。俺にも経験があるぞ。
あれ、ひょっとして村長さんのこと？まだ見つかってないの？
I went to the Hurade shrine to join the youth group in their search for the mayor. Since I knew there was no way he would be found, it was really boring for me. Well, just enduring sleepiness wasn't that bad. Not if you consider what Kimiyoshi had to go through since last night. He had been hanging from the ceiling and couldn't even fall asleep or sit down, since he had to stay on tiptoes the whole time. Teacher explained to us that the mayor had gone missing and asked us if we knew anything. A couple of people said some things, but they were irrelevant. To me, this issue meant nothing, but it was all my classmates were talking about. I observed Keiichi Maibara. I had no idea if any type of danger was drawing closer to him. Maybe I'd call him again tonight, pretending to be Shion. I told him some outrageous stuff last night, so he panicked. I was sure he'd calm down after a day. At that time, I heard a little girl's laughter. It was Rika Hurade, the last survivor of the Hurade family and their current head. However, she wasn't really treated as one. During the family councils, she'd often draw pictures or take a nap in the hag's bed. She wasn't even invited to last night's meeting. It was hard to believe such a little girl was responsible for part of the curse system. However, even though she wasn't in a respected position as the head of the Hurade family, there were plenty of old people who worshipped her as the reincarnation of Yashiro-sama. I'd heard from someone that Rika Hurade was rather odd. It seemed to behave as if she knew that she was the reincarnation. Maybe Takano-san had told me that at the library when she was alive. When Rika Hurade became worried about something, the elderly people who worshipped her would make arrangements. It was very similar to the Sonozaki family. It was also the same system as used for the curse. I wonder, does Rika Hurade know anything about the deaths of Takano-san and Tomitake-san? What does she think of people sneaking into the ritual storehouse? Does she know who snuck in and what happened to those people? Okay. Interesting. Because that's the thing. When Keiichi does go to, like, spill his guts to Rika about everything that happened, he does notice that she seems kind of disheveled, right? There's like, I believe it's like she's like covered in dirt or something. Her hair is a mess, if I'm remembering correctly. Like, it really seemed out of place. Looked like she had been crying almost. If I remember correctly, that's like, she looked like she had been through something. So I'm assuming she had a run-in with Mion. As the one managing the storehouse, it was possible that she noticed the intruders first. In fact, she was the only one who could have noticed it. She must have passed on the information, which was why the curse was executed. That foolish Keiichi turned the light on when we went to that ritual storehouse. The light switch could have been connected to some kind of alarm. Rika Hurade, the leader of the Hurade family, maybe getting to know her would be a good idea.
Hurade家当主として今回の件はどこまで知ってるの?
I asked her rather directly. It was hard to tell if she understood I was asking her in the place of the Sonozaki family head, instead of as Mion Sonozaki.
富武たちのことですか?
Rika answered. The news hadn't been made public yet she knew about it. Although she looked immature, perhaps she truly was the head of the Furede family.
お社様のたたりなのですよ。
そんなのは分かっならまだ終わってないよ。あと2人残って、その2人はどうなるか聞いてる？
I tried to be vague to see how Rika Furede would react. I've been thinking that she had nothing to do with the underside of Hinamizawa since she was always treated like a child. However, Rika had just said things about the incident that which normal people shouldn't know anything about. That proved she belonged to the underside's network.
別にどうでもいいと思いますですよ。
She answered the question about Tomitaka-san and Takano-san fairly quickly, but took a little longer to answer this time. Did she have to think about it? Shit. The look on her face never changes. It's possible to figure out what she's thinking.
どうでもいいって、それじゃあけじめにならないのは
僕はちゃんと反省したならそれでいいと思いますです。
Her response was unexpected, especially after seeing all the old people get so furious last night. To trespass in the ritual storehouse was blasphemy against Oyashiro-sama. The village elders had said those intruders deserved to die. Yet the leader of the Hurure family, who protected the sacred storehouse for ritual implements, said that if they felt remorse for it, then that was fine. I recalled how people thought of Rika Furure's father during the dam conflict. Yes, her father was called an opportunist back then. He didn't agree with the Onagabuchi guardians, who had resisted violently during their conflict. Like father, like daughter. I aggressively grabbed Rika Furure by the collar.
はあ
Don't do that to little homie.
何をひよったフルデ家は先代もあんたもつくづく甘ったるいね。あんたたちフルデ家が西宮殿がいかに神聖で不可侵な聖域か一番理解し、そのフルデ家の仮にも当主が何を甘ったるいことを言ってるわけ。
I laughed at myself. I was told the same thing by someone else and was now saying it to Rika.
西宮殿を犯した罪理解してないわけじゃないんでしょ。
西宮殿はお社様の大切な場所なのです。勝手に入ったりとかしちゃダメ。
分かってるじゃない。そこに汚れを持ち込んだんだよ、あの4人は。
悪い猫さんなのです。にゃー。
そうだね、
にゃー。
悪い猫だ。2匹は捕まえておしお、あと2匹いる。
にゃー。
どうけじめをつけるべきだろうね。フルデ家当主のご意見を聞かせてよ。
Rika really didn't usually wear any expression whatsoever, making it impossible to tell what she was thinking. While I grabbed her by the collar and stared at her, I could tell somehow. Rika was a little disturbed. I sensed she was trying to see what I was thinking in turn.
僕は2匹の猫さんは
それでけじめになると思ってんの？
けじめって言葉。
ああ、いい質問。けじめってのはね、罪は残せない。お社様のお怒りをだから罪の大きさに比例わかるよね。
お社様は別に西宮殿を見られても
はあ？あんた何言ってんの？
あの中を見ちゃダメなのはあの中に怖い道具がいっぱいあるからなのです。見るときっとだから誰にも見せないようにしてあるのですよ。見た人もきっと怖かったと思います。だから反省してると思いますの。
反省してるから許されるってあんたが決めることじゃないでしょ。そりゃお社様。
僕は
そんなことはじゃあ何さ。あんたはお社様に怒ってませんよって直接声を聞いて確認したとでも言うわ
け。Rika nodded yes without hesitation. Can't believe the lies she's coming up with. I'm not surprised. I'm shocked.
あんたらフルデ家がそんなお社様に仕える資格がないとそれであんたの父親をたたり殺したんだよ。
お社様はお父様は
こんなのが最後のフルデお社様がお社様をお祭り投げかわし。
ミーが何を起こっているのか僕にはよくわからないのですよ。
She was in a position to know as much as the other two family heads. As proof, she talked about this year's incident as though it was nothing. Yet she could feign ignorance with a serious face. She sure is something. She's even better than me. I slapped her a few times and pushed her to the floor. Okay. That explains why Keiichi finds her the way he does. Rika, having tumbled downward, looked up at me with tears in her eyes.
そもそもあんたが西宮殿の鍵が重いから簡単なもん。
そうですよ。硬くて僕では大変だったので君吉に相談して簡単な鍵に付け替えてもらったのです。
Hearing that little whimper in her voice breaks my fucking heart, dude. No.
あんたがその程度の手間を惜しまず今回の一件は それを忘れない方がいいよ。もちろんあんたと一緒に鍵を付け替えた君吉家当主にも責任があるんだけどね。
That last part was something I added on as a whim. I added to connect Rika's story to the disappearance of Kimiyoshi. I wanted to pressure her psychologically by doing so.
君吉家当主はだから消えた。古出家当主にもけじめをつけてもらうことになるよ。
Rika was still on the floor, tears pouring down her cheeks. Aww. And that's why she believes she'll take care of it. Oh, sweetie. When Keiji comes to her telling her about, spilling his guts about everything that happened, going on and on. But she's like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. Because she thinks that, that if she fucking, atones for her crimes, that it would fucking absolve Keiichi of what he did. Oh, sweetie. No.
あと残ってるのは前原き、こいつは古出家の方で頼むこと。
僕は
別にあんたはわかん、憂慮したり困った顔をす、それはうちも同じ。とにかく。
そんなの。
Rika hung her head. She seemed to want to say something, but she was afraid I might be rough with her again. I doubted Rika Furude was actually at the top of the curse system like the hag was. However, as one of the three family heads, she was a lot closer to the underside of Hinamizawa than I was. By now, that underside was well aware of Keiichi Maibara. I told the elderly leaders of the village yesterday in the meeting that Keiichi Maibara was the last one remaining. I just told the head of the Furude family the same thing. If threateningly. If my threat was effective, the curse of Yachido-sama should very soon fall upon Keiichi Maibara. And at just the right time, I would grab my enemy right as he took my bait. If the assassin came from the Furude family, this girl would have committed the same sin as the hag. That's the thing, though. I think back to chapter 2. And, like, Keiichi was hyper paranoid for sure. But was there anyone... Because, like, I know for sure in, like, chapter 1, there was people, like, trying to run him over. And then there was the time where, like, Reina was following right behind him. And, she started chasing him through the woods and whatnot. The villagers, confronted him at the dam site, knocked him out. He woke up at home with Mion and Reina there. Chapter 2, though. As far as I'm aware, Keiichi was just very paranoid in chapter 2. He didn't really... I don't think there's anyone that really made attempts on his life until he confronted Mion directly. Right. Because he felt responsible for Rika's death. That was a big part of it. Rika and Satoko. But, like, I don't think he himself was ever targeted. So I'm trying to like anticipate what this means for Shion's trap here. Because she's believing that by doing this, by spreading this information around that Keiichi's the last to go, that someone's going to do it. And therefore she can trace, she can find the person who's been doing this. But if that's the thing, if we follow the story of chapter 2, no one does it. As far as I'm aware, no one does it. I'm starting to think maybe it's due in part to what Shion does, right? Maybe, like, the reason reason nothing happens to Keishi's, the village, kind of ends up in a disarray after Kimiyoshi and then Rika both go, missing, right? So people are worried where these are like, the two remaining heads of the three families, and they just up and disappeared. Which kind of throws the village into a disarray, so people aren't really focusing on Keiichi as much. But that's the thing, is eventually someone does do it. Well, I'm trying to think, because obviously chapter 2 ends with Keiichi getting shanked by someone he thinks is Mion, right? That's how chapter 2 essentially ends. But that's the thing. If Oishi was telling us the truth, and the one with the tattoo on her back, which I think is the one that we've known as Shion, if the one with the tattoo on her back is the one that's dead at the bottom of the well, then does that not insinuate that Mion was actually a killer the whole time? Is that not then the insinuation that the one we've known as Mion, the one that was locked up in the cell, did it? Keiichi believes that Mion Sonozaki stabbed him. But the girl with the tattoo on her back was the one found at the bottom of the well. And that's why Oishi says it couldn't have been Mion, because Mion's already dead. She died climbing down that well. So she died long before you got stabbed. And since, the one we knew as, or since the one who stabbed Keiichi and then also the surviving sister, whoever it was, died on the same night. That's what I'm thinking, is like, she was meant to kill Keiichi. She was meant to do it. And that's why she's like, when he does get shanked, she's like, finally, I did it. Finally, it's over with. This one thing I've been meaning to do, I've needed to do for so long, I finally did it. And then she just leaves, right? And then we find out later that, Shion had like a sounded like she was arguing with her sister and she ended up falling to her death or whatnot. But also the Shion that we knew also was very much like already crazy. But if she's the one that's actually dead at the bottom of the well, it would make sense that the sister who had to like witness everyone get tortured around her, which we already knew she was struggling mentally. They kind of already acknowledged that at the end of chapter 2 that she was dealing with a lot of mental issues due to that trauma. Okay. So what I'm getting from this thus far, because that's the thing, Mion denied having anything to do with it, but that doesn't necessarily mean she was telling the truth, right? She said like, Oreo never really let her into those conversations. But it very much seems like the insinuation thus far that I can pick up from it is that the one we know as Mion was meant to kill Keiichi, but the one we know as Shion interrupted those plans because of, eavesdropping and then stun gunning him. Right? That's what, because the one we know as Shion was, as far as we can tell, was drugged. And was probably meant to be sent down to the torture room, but she got to him first. And that's the thing. Because Mion was having a conversation with Oreo during this when the one we know as Shion started overhearing things, like snuck out, started overhearing the conversation and whatnot. So it really feels like Mion's the one that's been doing it. That's been committing, at least as far as 1983 goes. I don't know if I can quite speak for the rest of the years, but at least as far as 1983 goes, and at least as far as the events of chapter 2 goes, it really seems like they're trying to paint Mion as the one who is, like, at least from the village's standpoint, carries out the will of the village, essentially. That's the vibe I'm getting. Because that is the thing. While in chapter 2, Keiichi really doesn't get targeted all that much, and now that we're seeing that the whole time, pretty much since the night of Watanagashi, Mion has been locked up in the basement. This thing, or maybe Mion's responsible for, like, demoning away people, right? Because the thing, Mion couldn't have been responsible for both Tomitake and Takano, because she's up late at night with Oreo discussing things and whatnot, right? But maybe she's responsible for demoning away people, which makes sense on Satoshi's part, because I could definitely see, Mion convincing Satoshi to, like, come with her or whatnot to discuss something, and she jumps him and takes advantage of his, kindness, I guess. With the wife, I mean, yeah, after whoever actually sacrifices the husband, right? I could very much see, they call the head of the Furure family, the wife, to the Sonozaki household, take her out there. As far as the Hojos go, it really seems like they were taken out, like, one right after the other on the same day, so kind of almost feels like whoever did it is responsible for both of those. And then we do know that how deeply connected Mion was to the damn construction site, and all the protests going on there. And honestly, even again then, I could see, like, the Sonozaki family reaches out to the person who committed the murder, who killed the damn foreman, saying they want to, like, the one survivor, the one that didn't get caught anyway, saying, like, they want to offer assistance, they want to offer some kind of help or whatnot, and they trick him into bringing him into the basement and taking him out. And that's how he gets demoned away. So honestly, I'm starting to think, as far as getting demoned away, I feel like that does fall on, at least from what I'm getting, from the information we're picking up thus far in this chapter, it feels like Mion, the demon, is responsible for demoning away side of the curse. Not necessarily the actual sacrifice of the curse, but the demoning away portion. So pretty much, like, she gets rid of the killers, essentially. Oh. That's an interesting thought. But that wouldn't be the case with year 5. Because other than chapter 3, Keiichi hasn't been the killer, yet Keiichi does get targeted. See, that's the thing. The 5th year is always the messy one. Because that's the thing. Maybe I could definitely see, like, as far as the events for the first 4 years, I could definitely see, Mion being the one that demons away people. I could totally understand that. And as far as the 5th year for chapter 2 and now chapter 5 goes, like, I could definitely see that as well. The thing about chapter 5, though, about 2 and 5, is that there's no, there is a murderer, right? There is someone who takes out Tomitake always, and usually Takano as well. Like the first year, Takano was the one to get demoned away, but in chapter 3, she got the oil drum treatment again, and that one kind of confused me because like there was no sneaking into the storehouse. Hmm. I don't know, but thus far, it really feels like the implication is that Mion has some. We still don't know who the ultimate perpetrator is, right? The one who commits the sacrifice. But at least from the first 4 years, it seems like someone does the sacrifice, and then Mion is tasked with taking out the killer, right? So mayhaps if we look at the Hojo couple, right? Mayhaps the wife, resented what they had done and what their family had become, whatnot, pushes the husband off the cliff or off the observatory, whatever the hell they were standing on. And then, because that's the thing, her body was never found. That's the whole part of like the demon away prospects, that the bodies are never found. So I could then see like, so like maybe like the wife went to the Sonozakis asking if there was anything that she could do to, regain the Hojo's good standing, right? To better the Hojo name, to like, wash away the curse that has fallen upon the Hojo name. And they tell her like, and maybe they offer a deal of like, get rid of your husband, and she does it. They bring her back to the main household to like reward her and then take her out there. I could absolutely see that. And obviously, the story doesn't line up that way, but we know the village can keep a secret. That's kind of been like the whole point. Is like the village works for each other and especially works for the Sonozakis, so they would absolutely keep a secret. And then year 3 with the Hura days, right? The wife, as we can already tell from, I believe it was chapter 4, it was in the notes, just talking about Rika and whatnot, how the wife did not like their position within the village. They didn't like what their position in the village had done to the upbringing of her child and whatnot. How she very much, resented the position they were in, and especially what it had done to Rika. So I could definitely see how that could lead to her acting out against the husband. And then shortly thereafter, she gets demoned away. And yeah, with Satoshi, he decides to take out his aunt. And then days later, he gets taken out. Mm-hmm. Oh. Hmm. Hmm. So that's the thing. Is when we think about the prophecy, right, from chapter 4, Rika says she's meant to die, right? When she lists off the other 4 years, she names the actual sacrifices, but doesn't mention those who get demoned away. As far as I remember. But she does mention the actual sacrifices. But I'm starting to think, because if we think back to when they were playing Clue, right? Rika specifically mentions that she, like, because Keiichi guesses it was Rika with a knife. She says something like, I would never use knives. I would more likely to use poisons. And we know how Tomitake dies, right? He's poisoned by some unknown substance. We don't know what the substance is, but we know he is essentially poisoned in some capacity. And if there's anyone that anyone will drop their guard around, it's Rika, right? So it genuinely starts to make me suspect that Rika might somehow be involved. But that's the thing. Because the first year, or not the first year, the first chapter, it's Takano that gets demoned away. And obviously there's a whole mess with the second year because of like all 4 of them sneaking into the storehouse. And then the third, right, and then the third night, oh, fuck. Chapter 3 throws a wrench in a lot of things. Chapter 3 is definitely a weird one. Because, like, Keiichi believes he's killed him, but then, like, it turns out he's alive, as people act like he is. Oh, yeah, fuck. Alright, I think I've definitely rambled on quite a bit now, but fuck. Like, that's the thing, just this tidbit that Shion has fed us about her plan to try to draw out the person who is potentially carrying out these killings, or at least the one for the 5th year. God, it just makes me think a lot about things. But yeah, bottom line, I think Mion is the one we know as Mion is directly tied to the demoning away, and that really, as far as we know, anyone is capable of being the one that carries out the sacrifice, right? While the targets may have been pre-selected, I'm sure like they have, like, honestly, kind of like what Shion has said here recently, how like Oreo kind of like says something vague and just waits for someone else to carry out the action, but doesn't really think about too much about who did it. But I think eventually they do find out who did it, and then they get demoned away because of it. That's honestly the vibe I kind of get, right? So it's not really important who carries out the sacrifice, or at least in my little theory, whoever carried out the sacrifice is the one that gets demoned away. But that's the thing, that kind of throws, it's always the 5th year. That's the thing. Like, I think I could come up with a solid theory for what happened the first 4 years. I'm still unsure, and that's because, like, thus far the 5th year has been different, other than now with chapter 5. Chapter 5 is like the first time we've seen the same events play out but from a different perspective, right? But it's still like the same events as a previous chapter. But that's the thing, with the first 3 chapters, the 5th night played out differently every time. But then we also got to remember about like how the village, can keep a secret and whatnot and all that. But it's like, I try to look at those events and like try to piece together like how that fits into the theory I've crafted thus far with the previous 4 nights, or like how a wrench could have gotten thrown into their plans to where things are carried out differently, right? Because we do know with chapter 4 that like Rika is meant to be the sacrifice for the 5th year, and she does ultimately get sacrificed in chapter 3, and she does die as well in chapter 2, and I'm assuming later here in chapter 5. Like, she does eventually die for sure. And like I also said earlier, she potentially could have died in chapter 1, but it was off screen and we didn't know about it. It definitely could have happened. Like, it could have happened before they got to Keiichi, right? Or like even before or during, while like he was running from Reina, and then like, you know, the people jumped him at the dam. Like, while that was ongoing, like someone could have been carrying out something, right? Because that's the thing, like the village, Reina's the one chasing him in chapter 1, but after the villagers get to him, you know, they choke him out, he loses consciousness, but when he wakes up, both Reina and Mion are there, but Mion wasn't present for chasing him down. So mayhaps Mion was off taking care of other business, mayhaps. Maybe tending to the, you know, proper sacrifice for the year. I don't know. Like, ultimately, got to focus on, like, why was Tomitake targeted? I feel like that's the main thing. This whole time they've tried to paint him as, like, because he was an outsider. But then Rika's little prophecy at the end of chapter 4 really throws a wrench in things. Because if Rika was the one meant to be sacrificed, why does it get turned to Tomitake? Like, is it potentially just the village fighting back against the death of Rika? Because she is like this village idol, village mascot, whatever. Everyone loves her to death. Does something change? Is there some kind of major change that happens during the 4 years leading up to year 5? To where, like, they make some change to where it doesn't have to be Rika? I'm not sure. Anyway, like I said, I've rambled on more than long enough, but it's given me a lot to think about. It's given me a lot to think about. But anyways, when that time came, I wouldn't hold back. I was going to make sure she suffered and then kill her. I've heard of a torture technique where you pound dozens of nails into a victim's fingers. Oh, where did I ever heard that one? I already found a restraining table and the tools for it. When the time comes, I'll pound nails into your fingers. That gruesome anticipation radiated from my eyes and scared Rika even further. I wonder how Kimiyoshi's doing. I doubt he died from tiptoeing all night, but sometimes a human can go very easily. He already told me everything I wanted to hear, and he doesn't know anything else anyway. On top of that, he was responsible for spreading the infection that was the curse system of Yashiro-sama. His sins are very heavy. I really liked Uncle Kimiyoshi. He had always been kind. The hag was so tough on her relatives, and that's why he was extra nice to me. When we talked yesterday, I was so happy to hear him say he would forgive Shion. He even said he would fight the hag to save her. That made me very happy. Don't worry. If Shion-chan feels bad about what she has done, she won't be demoned away. Leave it to me. I felt such warmth inside of me. I almost shivered. I was so happy, yet so very sad. For he continued to say that Satoshi-kun deserved to die. He said those nice things because he wanted to make Mion happy since she was worried about Shion. Satoshi-kun deserved to die because he was a member of the cursed Hojo family, but Shion-chan of the Sonozaki family did not. That's what he meant. In other words, to the leaders of the village, including Kimiyoshi, members of the Hojo family are more contemptible than insects. They didn't care if they lived or died. Their sin was not only that they despised the Hojo family so, but also that they let that hatred infect the rest of the village. Therefore, everyone in the village deserves to be a victim of the curse of Yashiro-sama. Kimiyoshi and the others created an environment that excused murder in that name. If that was so, if Takano-san and Tomitake-san hadn't committed the serious crime of trespassing in the ritual storehouse, then Satoko Hojo, the last survivor of the Hojo family, and Teppei Hojo, who has been hiding in Okonomiya, might have been the victims. Satoko Hojo, don't you fucking start. She was always around Satoshi-kun. She expected Satoshi-kun to help her every time she cried. Get off it. She was one of the people. Somebody told Satoshi-kun to commit that. Is that what you're going to assume? You're going to assume that little Satoko went to her bro and said, hey, kill her? And to hide the evidence of his connection to the mastermind, Satoshi-kun was demoned away. That's what Oishi thought. If Satoshi-kun hadn't killed his aunt, maybe he wouldn't have been chosen as last year's victim. Because the commands were vague after all, the curse of Yashiro-sama fell upon the Hojo family as a whole. It didn't matter which member of the family died. His aunt had a terrible reputation in the neighborhood. She didn't communicate with her neighbors, she was always throwing fits, and there was nothing nice about her in any way. Even if Satoshi-kun didn't kill her, the curse would have fallen upon her sooner or later. Their aunt was the first victim. There needed to be another Hojo to calm the curse. According to a rumor, their uncle was living somewhere in Okonomiya with his lover. However, Okonomiya was a little different from Hinamizawa. The Sonozaki family was powerful there as well, of course, but it would have been more difficult in Okonomiya to demon someone away. So naturally, Satoshi-kun and Satoko, who were still in Hinamizawa, became the targets. Which one should be cursed? That was simple. Everyone in the neighborhood liked fuck you. Even if he was the son of the Hojo couple who betrayed the village during the dam conflict, compared to Satoko, oh, fuck you. Satoshi-kun was suddenly all alone. His mean aunt and mean uncle were gone. Sister, Satoshi-kun was such a nice person he would be sad, although he'd realize he was finally free, but time would heal him. I'd even help. He didn't have to live in his house in Hinamizawa. There were plenty of empty rooms in the apartment block where I lived. I could find him a part-time job, too. He didn't need to go to school in Hinamizawa. He'd go to school with me in Okonomiya instead. He wouldn't know his way around, or really anything about the school there. So I'd be with Satoshi-kun all the time. I'll show him a shortcut to school, we'd go shopping, and I'd teach him many different things. One unbelievably happy ending. That sounds like hell. Satoshi-kun had been suffering so much, and I had been pushed away all my life. But we would finally be happy. No. Just goes to show how little you understood the guy. I enjoyed these sweet delusions, but I didn't have any more time to waste. I was sure there were plenty of old people who had been trying to get a hold of Oreo all morning, and were going to try to catch me after I got home from school. Actually, the phone had been ringing constantly while I enjoyed my happy thoughts. When I answered the phone, I casually listened and replied. As I planned, Keiichi Maibara is now known as the next curse victim within the underside of Hinamizawa. I also tried to let them know that the disappearance of the village chief had something to do with the fact that he changed the lock on the ritual storehouse's door. All the authorities in the other underside came to realize the seriousness of trespassing in the storehouse. After all, one of the heads of the three families got punished. One of the phone calls was from Oishi. He had also heard about Kimiyoshi's disappearance, and he knew it had something to do with the changing of the lock. I'm impressed. He has some pretty good sources, but all he can do is catch whatever information he can get. There's no way for him to find out where it's coming from. I'd call Keiichi Maibara again later tonight. Some of the more aggressive villagers may have already started to take action around him. I'm sure that by now Keiichi's feeling the danger that's coming toward him. I'd have to be careful that he doesn't get killed easily. If I can catch the enemy before they bit Keiichi, I can use him again as bait. Keiichi Maebara. I haven't known him for that long. He's funny, if not intelligent. He'll never replace Satoshi-kun, but I do think he's fun to be around. There's just one thing I don't like about him. He rubs my head far too often. His hand is as warm as Satoshi-kun's hand, which is why I can't stand it. That's about it. Keiichi Maebara isn't Satoshi-kun's enemy. I don't hate him. He's fun to be around, but I wouldn't shed a tear for him if he became a victim of the curse. I won't prevent Keiichi Maebara from being killed, but I won't kill him myself either. I'd made arrangements for the curse to fall upon him, but I never told anyone to kill him. Well, I suppose I did tell Rika Furude to take care of Keiichi Maebara. Wait a minute. To avenge Satoshi-kun, I'm doing exactly the same thing as the hag did. I'm using the exact same system that killed Satoshi-kun. Keiichi Maebara. I'm just using him. I told people to let the curse fall upon Keiichi, but I've been giving him appropriate warnings. I'm going to help him if he tries to live. If I catch all of my enemies, maybe I'll let him loose. He's different from Satoshi-kun. Satoshi-kun was tricked into killing his aunt, and was killed himself afterwards so there wouldn't be any evidence remaining. I won't kill Keiichi Maebara. That's how I'm different from the hag. Okay. Okay, I suppose that makes some sense. She initially decides she's going to do it to try to torture the one we know as Mion. Right. Because she knows how much she liked Keiichi. But then she has that sudden... she's gonna have like a sudden realization as she's getting ready to like actually torture him and realize, oh no, I'm turning into the hag. I'm becoming that old woman. Evening was turning to night. I had to get dinner ready. I had to eat so I'd have enough strength to take revenge. This place was far from the town. It would even get isolated during winter because of the snow. It's unusual for a household like this to have 2 or 3 refrigerators. There were plenty of groceries left in them. I was glad I didn't have to go grocery shopping. I could hear the chorus of the Higurashi. People often say that the sound of the Higurashi brings back memories. But for me, it's the exact opposite. I've only ever heard the sound of the Higurashi in Hinamizawa. Therefore, the sound of the Higurashi to me is Hinamizawa. The sound reminded me that I wasn't supposed to be here. That I couldn't be here. That was when I heard the doorbell. Because there was a good distance between the house and the gate, there was both a doorbell and an intercom by the latter. It had a security camera too. Something as modern as a security camera monitor in this old-fashioned kitchen looked rather strange. I turned the switch, but nothing appeared on the monitor. I tried to check the plug, but there were a bunch of cords going by in the refrigerator, so I couldn't even do that. The doorbell continued to ring while I tried to figure out if the monitor was broken or if I just didn't know how to turn it on. Well, I felt like answering the door depending on who it was. It'd normally be easier to pretend to be out, but that wouldn't help me. I was waiting for my enemies to show up. I couldn't just hide myself in that case. The hag was supposed to be sick and in an extremely bad mood. I already sent word out that she didn't want to see anyone. So who could it be? Made up my mind and turned the intercom on. If it was someone unwanted, I could just turn whoever it was away. But I'd act normally, so I wouldn't arouse suspicion. I'd act normally.
はい、どちら様です？
こんにちはなのです。
She didn't tell me her name, but I recognized her voice.
リカちゃんか。どうしたの？こんな時間に。
実はお醤油を分けてもらいに来たのですよ。
Soy sauce? I almost screamed, but I controlled myself. Took a moment to think about the situation. Namizawa was far from most stores, so sometimes neighbors would share seasoning and stuff with each other. The village sometimes got snowed in during winter, but the Hurode shrine was quite far from this house. It was rather odd for her to come all the way here on her bicycle just to get some soy sauce. Maybe she was using it as an excuse. Maybe there was something she wanted to talk to me about. No, it was just pure coincidence, wasn't it? Because we already know from Keiichi that there was like the flyers that like the Sonozakis are like, we got excess soy sauce. If you need soy sauce, you come to us. We got the excess soy sauce for but you know, limit one jug per person, you know, so on and so forth. So what, Rika just shows up out of pure coincidence? She wasn't even lured out there. She was just like, well, I need more soy sauce, and like I saw the flyer, the Sonozaki's got hella soy sauce, so like I suppose I'm gonna go out to the people who I know got lots of soy sauce. That was when I noticed a piece of paper that was on the refrigerator door next to the intercom. We still have plenty of homemade soy sauce in stock. Feel free to come to the Sonozaki house if you want some. The hag must have given that flyer to everyone. One of our relatives sent her a barrel of soy sauce. If you want some, bring a container. That's what the flyer said. I see. This would explain it. There was a handwritten note on the bottom of the flyer. The soy sauce in the storage area under the floor. Give them as much as they want. There was a storage area beneath the floor. When I opened it, I saw a barrel of soy sauce alongside a funnel and a ladle. I didn't want Rika to notice anything suspicious at this point. I decided to share the soy sauce with her.
いいよ。入れるものは持ってきて。
お醤油の瓶を持ってき。
オッケー。勝手に入ってきていいよ。玄関で待ってる。
As I headed there, the doorbell rang again.
みー、内側から閉まってて、門が入れないのですよ。
ああ、そうだ。ごめん。今開けに行くよ。待ってて。
People didn't pay much attention to safety around here in Hinamizawa. People didn't think too much about locking the doors. But as someone who's lived in a town, I've always locked everything. I mean, I'll be honest, even when I lived in a much smaller area similar to, like, this kind of village, like, I still locked my shit. People would always, like, question, like, dude, why do you lock your car? Why do you lock your doors? Like, you live in a fucking place that has a population of less than, like, 100 people. Why are you locking your shit? Yeah, there's nothing to worry about. I'm like, I don't trust you fucking people. I'm locking my shit. To let Rika put it in, I'd have to go outside.
こんばんはなのですよ。
こんばんは。
Rika smiled at me. She was holding a huge soy sauce bottle. She acted like I never yelled at her, got violent with her, or made her cry at all today. Yeah, it's because she's the goat. Or perhaps she came to curry favor, thinking that she angered me. I invited Rika to the front door. I told her to wait a moment and tried to take the bottle. But Rika took her shoes off, walked into the house with the bottle in her hands.
いいよ。私が入れてくるから待ってなよ。
僕も、上後でお醤油入れるのは上手になったのですよ。
She looked at me, as if begging. I guess she wanted to pour the soy sauce into the bottle herself. I wanted her to come into the house, but I suppose I didn't want her to wait there alone either. If she came to the kitchen with me, I could keep my eyes on her. And so I brought Rika to the kitchen. We walked down the hallway. I only heard my footsteps. I stopped suddenly and turned around to make sure Rika was following me. Rika bumped into me.
ああ、ごめん。
I made sure she was right behind me and started to walk again. Rika must have been having fun matching her footsteps to mine. Even when I quickly sped up, our footsteps matched perfectly. I stopped suddenly. Rika stopped suddenly too, after taking an extra step. When I turned around, Rika smiled at me. Our footsteps matched perfectly, and when I stopped suddenly, I heard extra step. I've experienced such footsteps before. It was making me feel uncomfortable. Oh. But now, although her footsteps sounded the same as the other ones I'd experienced, I saw her when I turned around. That was the difference between them. I left the storage door open so we could see the soy sauce barrel. Memo said she can take as much as she wants, but I wasn't sure there was enough left. I crouched down and tried to open the lid of the soy sauce barrel. Even when I crouched down, I could hear Rika's extra step.
まだほら、好きなだけ持ってくといい。
When I turned around, Rika was very close to me. But, What was this? I saw Rika, but it wasn't Rika at all. It was like when I switched with my sister. The outside was the same, but the inside was different. Did Rika have a twin sister? I was confused for a moment. That was when Rika sprayed something from a small bottle into my eyes. I felt a terrible pain in my eyes. Suddenly tears poured out and my nose started to run. Couldn't stop sneezing either. As I stumbled around covering my face, I then realized I was attacked. I shut my eyes tightly for a moment, then opened them again. Rika was about to grab my hair to drag me down to the floor. When Rika saw me open my eyes, she sprayed at me again. I shut my eyes to avoid the spray, but my nose still breathed in the substance. That's my goat. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. You know what? That's even better. That's even better. Rika said she was going to take care of things. She's like, oh, you want to fucking slap me around, push me around? Bitch, I'll lay down the law. Shows up with pepper spray, just starts spraying her, whooping her shit. I love it. I avoided the pain in my eyes, but the tears, the runny nose, and the sneezing continued. Shit. Ah! My brain isn't working quickly enough. However, when I finally understood that I'd been attacked by Rika Furide, my brain started to grind into motion. Rika Furide knocked me on my back and got on top of me. I tried to escape from her by rolling on the kitchen floor. As I rolled, I hit an oven, a huge jar, and destroyed a pile of something on the floor as I fought back. But Rika didn't let go of me. She stayed on top and restrained me. She was sitting on my stomach and I felt intense pain and pressure. She sure could fight well. I still couldn't see anything. Rika had the upper hand. My eyes were shut and I was in real danger. As I tried to blink, I saw Rika's expression. I didn't know Rika Furide all that well. I only knew her from the few times we met when I went to school as Mion and from the things I've heard from other people. As far as I knew, there was no way Rika Furide would ever do something like this. This is just impossible. Impossible. No, I can't fill my head with that word. I have to calm down and figure out what to do next. Shit, I'm too much of a mess to even think. I tried to peek at her face again. She still had that spray bottle in one hand. What I didn't expect was the thing in her other hand. How could I mistake it for anything else? It was definitely a syringe. And see, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, I almost felt like Rika was the one responsible for like year 5 in an attempt to like not be the one sacrificed. Right? So she has the syringe, and that's what she meant, like she was gonna make things disappear, right? Yeah, and that makes sense. Oh, yeah. They already explained that to us in chapter 2. Because Oishi finds her body at the bottom of the well, or at least the cops do, and he asked Keiichi if he thought Rika was diabetic because she had a syringe with her. We had our, oh my god, I had totally forgotten that fact. We already knew that Rika came in here trying to take her out. Because we had already pieced together that she had came in with the syringe to actually do some damage. We already knew this. I had honestly totally forgot about that point. So that's the thing. Rika clearly, as we now clearly see, does have access to whatever this substance is that they carry syringes of. And maybe that's how they got a hold of it in chapter 1, right? I said that we never saw Rika die, but maybe she did die off screen. And maybe that is how they got how Mion gets a hold of it in chapter 1. But yeah, that's the thing, and maybe that's why she takes out Tomitake, because she figures, you know, he's an outsider, so it's an acceptable compromise, right? And maybe that's why she changes the lock, right? She changes on the lock on the storehouse to bait someone into doing it, right? I could totally believe that. To bait him into doing it, and then injects him with the, so that he, in the hopes that he becomes the next target and she evades it. Because that's the thing, Rika's smart. We know Rika hella smart. And, you know, Takano being the fucking weirdo that she is, I could absolutely see why they... Or that's the thing, right? They inject her... He gets injected with the syringe, so they assume it's like something medical, some kind of medicine, right? And they know he's connected closely to the nurse Takano. And maybe no one truly knows actually who carries out the murders, right? Like, maybe it was just an educated guess that they thought it was Satoshi that took out his aunt. Because it would make the most sense, right? Maybe he still didn't do it. Maybe I'm still in the right here. Maybe he still didn't do it. Maybe he did set it up for someone else. and they just had assumed it was Satoshi, and they took him out. Ooh, I could see that. Just like if Rika is truly the one responsible for what happened to Tomitake, because once again, that's someone who would definitely let their guard down around her. So Tomitake, that's the thing. In chapter 1, they do tell us that Tomitake like has like bruises as if he had been beaten on before he like clawed his throat out. Though we do know that Rika got shooters. All right, we do know that the elderly specifically would go to bat for Rika 110%. So I could potentially see it. Or honestly, even if it was just like... Honestly, even if it was just Reina. But I was thinking Reina and Mion. That's the thing. Mion would be the one to... If Mion's the one that carries out the demoning away, if she were involved, she would know that Rika would be the one primarily responsible. So, like, I could definitely see, like, maybe even Reina and Satoko. And that's the thing, like, I kind of start to suspect, like, I start thinking, like, okay, so if Satoshi isn't the one who killed his aunt, right? Because, yeah, it was only a year earlier. There's no real implications that Satoko herself would become murderously violent. I guess other than, like, at the end of chapter 3 when she pushes Keiichi off a bridge, but... We do know that Satoko, like, really fucked with baseball. We do know that. Like, she was better than... She was actually, like, really solid. Even and Satoshi was kind of shit. I know that doesn't necessarily translate to being able to bash someone's brains in. But Satoko would also have a lot of pent-up anger for the aunt. No. Satoko's at the festival. Satoko's at the festival. So that wouldn't have been the case. I could definitely see Reina helping out Rika. I could definitely see that. That's the thing. See, they said Tomitake seemed like he had been beaten by like a crowd of people. I'm trying to think like who would, because it seems like really the followers of Yashiro-sama, right? They'll get behind whatever the fucking order is. So like, as much as like, because that's the thing. Like Shion said, when her name gets brought up, even Kimiyoshi's like, yeah, fuck him. We gotta take him out. But on the inside, he's kind of like, well, I mean, like, I'd try to help her if I could. Or maybe he was just talking bullshit. That's the thing. Maybe he was just talking bullshit because he was trying to make, quote-unquote, Mion feel better about, Shion being, held captive and whatnot. Meanwhile, he wouldn't do shit. Kind of like how, Shion snaps at Mion when she said, like, would you have tried to help Satoshi? She's like, of course I would. Like, no, you fucking wouldn't. You would have stood by and watched it all happen. It's kind of like the similar thing with Kimiyoshi. Like, he says to, Mion, who he thinks is in distress, like, oh yeah, I'd absolutely do whatever I could to help out Shion. And in reality, no, he fucking wouldn't. I could see that being the case. Yeah. So, yeah, what I'm saying is, like, clearly these people just have, like, once the target is selected, for whatever reason, they're gonna go after him. So I don't even think, like, if you tell the elderly people, like, Rika's the target, as much as I'm sure they would not like that, they'd probably just fucking go along with it regardless. So that's the thing, even if Rika is the person responsible for injecting Tomitake, who would be willing to swing on him, right? Who would be willing to beat the brakes off him like that? Because that's the thing, he does get, like, there's indications he was beaten with a blunt object. And it seemed like he was beaten by a crowd of people before eventually tearing his own throat out. That I'm not too sure about. But anyway, go off, Rika. When Rika realized I'd regained my eyesight, she pointed the spray bottle right at me and let loose with it. I shut my eyes tightly and tried to ignore the pain. But that was when, even though I was blinded, Rika made a miscalculation. She had sprayed me from such a close distance that she inhaled the substance as well. Ah! I heard Rika sneeze and realized that was my chance. Even if I couldn't see, I knew she was right there. I hit Rika's face a few times. When I felt Rika's weight shift, I escaped. Then I got my stun gun ready. Rika must have inhaled just a little of the spray. She wasn't sneezing anymore and was glaring at me instead. Rika's expression didn't change, but I was sure she was disappointed that her surprise attack was a failure. Rika flinched just a little. She was still holding the spray bottle and aiming at my eyes. She was trying to use the spray first, and then give me the shot. I didn't know it was in that syringe, but it was a clear liquid. It had to be something bad. She wanted to take my eyesight, get on top of me, and then give me the shot. If whatever was in the syringe took a while to take effect, I might have the chance to fight back, and seriously injure Rika. But Rika's surprise attack told me that just being injected was more than enough. In other words, whatever the effect, it would start to work immediately. Therefore, I wouldn't be able to fight back against her. It'd probably either knock me out or kill me. In any case, what I had was equally deadly. My stun gun was very powerful. Just one shot would be all it took. What happened before was proof of its power. Rika knew my stun gun was a lot more powerful than her spray. She was being extremely cautious. I threw a pile of newspapers at her. The pile wasn't tied together, so the newspapers flew all over Rika. I jumped at her immediately after. I shoved my stun gun into her and pulled the trigger. Rika spasmed and fell to the floor. You fool. Hesitating in a fight where a single blow wins? Only amateurs just glare at each other. You don't have a single clue about how advantageous the first strike is when a single blow can decide everything. The spray bottle rolled on the ground, but she still had the syringe. Rika was down, but I couldn't let my guard down either. I kicked her in the side and clambered on top of her. I took the syringe. I held Rika's arm down and gave her the shot. No! No, that's even worse! Damn! Damn! My actions could hardly be called gentle. I injected her violently. I injected everything that was in the syringe. Rika began to convulse. I stood back and watched for what would happen to her body. Of course, I still had my guard up. While I assumed that the drug would incapacitate her immediately, I didn't know what kind of reaction she would have. After a few more convulsions, Rika unsteadily got to her feet. That's ridiculous. How could she even stand? I looked at my stun gun. Damn it. Power was on the lowest setting. Maybe it had been readjusted when we were rolling around on the floor. Changed the setting to maximum. Rika turned pale and started sweating all over. I didn't know its exact effects, but if Rika had given me the shot, I'd be the one experiencing her symptoms. She looked really sick, so obviously she must have been feeling awful too. She couldn't even focus. She was very wobbly and had her hand on the wall. She'd lost her balance. It must have been hard for her to even stand. She didn't look so brave anymore. Rika wobbled some more and moaned as if she was about to throw up. Rika looked scary as she moaned and wobbled, but at the same time she looked kind of funny too. Certainly, she hadn't even dreamed she'd be getting the shot herself. As the man sows, so shall he reap. That's what you get.
実に滑稽だね。でも吐くときは勘弁ね。あんたがあとどのくらいでくたばるのか見物するのも楽しいよ。ああ、でもそれじゃあ拷問する楽しみがない。私さ、あんたにはあの釘台を使ってやろうとずっと心に決めてたんだよね。あんたが自分の薬でゲロを吐きながらそれで窒息して死ぬのが早い。よし決めた。じゃあ会場を移そうか。場所を移すためにちょいと眠って。
I walked up to Rika, my stun gun making popping sounds. When Rika saw the sparks from the stun gun, she moved to grab a huge kitchen knife.
おやそうでなくちゃあんたにはいろいろ聞きたい無駄に抵抗しない方最も抵抗しなくても辛い目に遭うだろうけど
残念だけどあんたの誘いは断るわこの拷問教が
What she said wasn't anything I'd expect to hear from the Rika I knew. But I didn't hesitate. I had the advantage, so I didn't need to worry. Besides, it was coming from the last survivor of the Furede family, one of the 3 families. A sudden change somehow felt natural.
あんたらの御三家の血塗られた歴史に比べたらそれをフルデ家当主様にちょっと光栄だね。んでそのフラフラな体で包丁一本で抵抗立っているだけでも限界なく
そうねあんたの言う通りお前なんかに召し取られて拷問で殺されるくらいなら悪いけど
Oh, the knife isn't for
退場
Shion.
させてもらうわ
退場できるならしてごらんよ
It was clear who held the advantage here. Yeah, she's not gonna give you the fucking satisfaction. But despite that, an odd thrill filled both of us. We lost our minds wasn't a fizzing phrase for the people of Hinamizawa. It was a feeling of release when modern demons could stop pretending to be human. Yes, this was a mad banquet of demons, with the savoring of blood and devouring of flesh. Attended by the head of the Hurure family and the head of the Sonozaki family, the old families whose blood is closest to the madness of the demons. I stood in front of the hallway so as to block her escape route. The windows had grates and the door had the safety chain on it. If she turned around, I'd hit her with my stun gun. In this situation, what did Rika Furede mean by taking her leave? Rika got her knife ready. I expected her to aim at my stomach when she attacked, so I took a stance with my stun gun ready in my hand. Rika, however, suddenly turned around. Carefully watched to see what her next move would be. Rika put the handle of the knife to the wall and held it in place. What was she doing? Is she gonna headbutt it?
さよなら拷問教お前なんかに殺されてたまるか
Oh, oh. Damn. I guess it makes sense. Like, she's too weak to actually, like, really bring, or maybe even if she wasn't, like, injected, she wouldn't have the strength to do it. Cause, you know, she's kind of small and frail, you know? Oh, God, just, oh. I wasn't expecting it to be that fucking violent, goddamn. Rika reared her head back and slammed her throat against the knife on the wall. Her blood splattered all over. Rika bent backwards repeatedly and let the knife slash at her throat. Again and again. Oh. 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 I thought it was going to be a one and done kind of thing, but oh. Her neck and chest were dying red. She just keeps going at it until she can't. Okay. I always thought blood was darker, but her blood wasn't dark. It was so bright. Must have been confused, but it looked pretty. After doing this several times, Rika turned around. Her eyes wide open. She didn't look like she was from this world. Her face looked like something both living and dead, both real and artificial. It was very scary, eerie, and above all else, pale. Although her face looked unearthly, it was a very appropriate face for a demon. I didn't have a mirror, so I couldn't tell, but I was sure I looked exactly like her. Rika continued to violently slash at her throat. It reminded me of someone trying to break a huge piece of ice with an ice pick. That was exactly what Rika looked like. The white chips of ice coolly flying through the air. What I saw before me was a beautiful sight. Every time Rika struck her throat, tiny drops of red blood splattered the boring white world around her. It was like a dance. A dedication dance by the final head of the Hurure family. The demon's last dance of dedication to Yashiro-sama. Upon seeing that literally blood-curdling dance, I let out a fierce roar. I had no reason to do so, but I was howling like an animal. We were like animals trying to kill each other, both getting covered in blood. And inevitably, as one convulsed in a pool of that blood, the other threw back its head and howled. My body shivered with joy I felt inside of me. This was death, the most final of judgments, and it was right before me. The demons howled, screamed, and roared. The roars faded, and my voice started to change from the voice of a demon back to that of a human. As a demon, I roared, but as a human, I sneered. Rika was covered in blood from her neck down. Her blood was pouring out, making a little noise. Rika was still staring into my eyes. I stared back at her. I wasn't sure they were still eyes, though. They were no longer human eyes, but the eyes of the dead. Rika's corpse vomited blood from her mouth and nose and smiled. Then she dropped the knife. She stuck her hands out and turned her palms upward. Her wiggling fingers reminded me of an insect's legs. Those fingers reached for her own throat. Ah! I'd never seen anything like it. I'd never seen anybody do this before. Because Rika was scratching her own throat. She was ripping her own throat apart. Maybe that wasn't a good description. She was trying to rip out the inside of her throat through the opening she'd made with the knife. Her fingers found the biggest tear. Rika smiled. At least that's what I would have called it if she were alive. She ripped open the tear in one tug. Upon hearing my scream, Rika died and fell on her face into the pool of blood. That was it. She didn't get up again to show me her throat. I stepped back from Rika Furude's body and bumped into the wall in the hallway. I roared again in admiration of the ritual dance of dedication of the head of Furude family. Joy ran through my body and my blood rushed through my veins. I then realized I disposed of the heads of the three families, the core of the curse of Ayashiro-sama. Everything was finally exposed. The curse of Ayashiro-sama and its masterminds were all exposed. I disposed of the leaders of the three families who all killed Satoshi-kun. The head of the Sonozaki family died of a heart attack. She was at the bottom of the well along with a wheelchair. I apprehended the head of the Kimiyoshi family. He'd continued to tiptoe until he died. The head of the Furude family died, in a way that was perfect for the final head of the three families of Onagafuchi. I did it. I accomplished my mission. I defeated all of the masterminds who killed Satoshi-kun with the curse. Every one. Satoshi-kun, you were powerless. You didn't have the means to fight back. Those evil people simply sneered while they let you die, after marking you as a member of the cursed Hojo family. I will never, ever forgive them. They believed you deserved to die because you were one of the Hojos. As long as it was done by the curse of Yashiro-sama, they didn't care how you were killed. I will never forgive those people for creating this world. What could I have done to save you, Satoshi-kun? I couldn't save you. Shion Sonozaki couldn't have done anything else at the time. If I was Mion, not Shion. If I was Mion that day, I could have saved you. Mion could have saved you. That's right. I remember now. Shion. She said she wanted to eat red snapper sashimi that day. I was supposed to eat that, but Shion pouted and cried. That was why I let her switch, just for that night. Did it to make her happy like a big sister would. Shion was never treated well, so I felt bad. That was it. I was being a good sister. That was it. When morning came, the world had been turned upside down and it had remained so until today. We weren't twins anymore. The one with the demon was Mion, and the one without the demon was Shion. What was that supposed to mean? Wait, Mom, listen. I'm Mion, not her. You can tell us apart, right, Mom? Look, can't you tell I'm Mion? Come on, everyone, tell me I'm Mion. I'm Mion. Don't call me Shion. I'm Mion, I am.
その時あんたは知っていた。あの夜親類たちが集まって何をするのかただの宴会じゃないって知っていた。知らない本当に知らなかった。はあ？あんたあの日だけ嫌にしつこく絡んできたじゃん。タイの刺身なんて食べたことない。食べてみたい。いつもミオンばかりずるい。私にもって。普段ならおとなしく納得するくせにあの日だけ必要に。知らないよ。あんな恐ろしいことになるなんて。はっ、あんたはいつも妬んでたじゃない。ミオンだから私が気を利かせて、あんたはそれに満足していなかった。そしてあの夜の意味を自分だけ知り、私がミオンを奪ったんだ。ミオンを返せ。私がミオンなんだ。私が園崎ミオン。お前はシオンなんだよ、シオン。ミオンを語るな、偽物が。
I kicked the bars of the cell repeatedly while I roared. Compared to my roar, the metallic noise of the bars sounded like the cry of a little puppy. I'd been convinced by something so stupid. The tattoo of the demon was just a way of telling us apart. Even without that tattoo, I am Mion. That's right. I am Mion Sonosaki. Hold up now. Hold up now. Hold up. So is this not is this talking about the night that they decided to send Shion away? Is this the night that Mion received her tattoo? And she oh fuck. 'Cause if so, god damn. The night she received the tattoo, right? The night she truly became Mion. But the whole time she was oh. I gathered my hair and put it in a ponytail with the yellow band that Mion used all the time. Because I didn't feel my hair on my neck. I felt like I could think more clearly now. Two Mions looked at each other through the iron bars. According to our sibling rules, that was never to happen. Yes, there was only one Mion and one Shion. There can never be two of either at the same time.
髪をほどけシオン。ミオンは私だ。お前がミオンじゃない。だから語るな。二度と私を語るな。聞こえているのか。聞こえているなら返事をしろ。私に返事を届かせろ。シオン。
I took myself back on this day. Shion admitted she was Shion.
すごいよ。頭の回転が優れた気がする。
Damn.
そうだよ。ミオンは万能なんだ。リソカスのシオンとは落ちこぼれのくせに。わかるでしょあんたにだ。シオン。はい。おね。
Shion called me sis. And so, I was Mion. The demon who had been asleep deep inside of me was finally allowed to wake up. The demon roared. My whole body shivered to express its joy.
シオン。あんたは今まで園崎家の鬼を継ぐミオンという強い立場がありな。サトシ君を救うための100億の私は許さない。お前を許さない。お前が私を奪いサトシ君を殺したことを私は絶対に許さない。
Shion was shaking on the other side of the bars.
私はお前を殺すだろう。お前を一番残酷に殺す方法がない。シオンは私がそれをいつ殺す、どう殺される。簡単には殺さない。殺した後はサトシ君と、そしてサトシ君にあの世で。それが私を語り続けてきた報い。お前の罪。
God damn. God damn. Interesting. What a fucking revelation. Damn. So like they've pointed out like the whole time, like, neither one, claimed they were the other, right? Mion always said she was Mio, at least as far as in Keiichi's stories. Other than like obviously now, post like in Watanagashi in chapter 2, post the actual festival, clearly there was a big shift, but like leading up to that, Mion always claimed to be Mion, and the one we knew as Shion always claimed to be Shion. We never, as far as we knew, neither of them ever actually pretended to be the other in the presence of Keiichi up until the festival. But the whole time, Shion wasn't Shion and Mion wasn't Mion. The one we knew as Mion always claimed to be Mion, but the whole time that was actually Shion. Damn, that is so fucking crazy. So the Mion and Shion always used to trade places. And then one fateful night, Shion begs her, "Let me trade places. I hear there's this big family thing going on. I know they have good food. I'd love to try the food. Please let me trade places." They allow it, and that's the night that they decide that she's like, "You're going to receive your demon, and Shion's going to get sent away." Damn. 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 Wow. Holy fuck. Wow. That's a lot. I'm trying to think of like what implications that could have in the grand scheme of things. Cuz regardless, the one we've known as Mion, right? The one we have known as Mion has still been, has still witnessed these things happen. As far as I'm aware, still the one connected to, the demoning away process. I mean, obviously, it very clears up, it very much sets up, I mean, this clear resentment that the true Mion would have towards the one we've known as Mion. Damn. I don't know how this revelation really change anything we know about the other fifth nights that have happened in like chapter 1 and 3. But damn, that is an insane fucking twist, that's for sure. While I was putting old newspapers on the floor to absorb the blood, the phone rang. Yeah, and now that she's gone like full demon mode, of course. Oh, poor Satoko. I'm sorry, sweetie. I didn't want to answer, but maybe I should. I should answer and talk to whoever it was.
はい、園崎です。
いつもお世話になってるでございます。北条と申しますですわ。
I was surprised to hear the Hojo name, but I realized right away that it was Satoko.
あ、さとこ、どうしたの？
夜分遅くにもうちのリカがお邪魔してませんこと？
Ah, yes. Ever since Satoko Hojo was abandoned, she'd been living with Rika Furude. Of course, she'd get suspicious that Rika hadn't returned
あ、
yet.
来てるよ。
あら、もう夕飯の時間ですのに。
ねえさとこ、実はね、今日さ、リカちゃんにも夕食を振る。
そうな。
さとこも来なよ。さとこの分もあるからさ、リカちゃんはもう食べてるよ。
もうわかりましたわ。ちょっと片付けをして。では、ごめんあそばせ。
うん、待ってるからね。じゃ。
And please let that be it. Please let that be it. Like I said in the last recording, I was like, I'm totally fine if you like... I'm like, that's the thing. The Rika scene played out a lot differently than I expected. No, don't show me. Don't show me. Do not show me. Do not show me. Okay, this is the call between K... Okay. Okay. But like I said, I was like, I feel like there's definitely something to learn from Rika going over there, right? And I was right. It was something different than I expected, for sure. But like, that one playing out, you learn something from it. But like, yeah, no, with Satoko, I'm like, I wanted it to play out exactly like it just did. Exactly like it just did. Where like, she gets the phone call from Satoko, says, yeah, come on over, and then it cuts to the bars show up. It cut, there's the implication. We know what happened. I was like, I do not at all want to see that scene play out. And I don't think I'm entirely out of the woods just yet. But I feel like I'm pretty sure we are. Because this would be where, yeah, because this is the phone call where Keiichi says, I'm worried about Rika. And she go, what? Why? Because that's the thing. She just told Satoko to come over. Right? She had just told Satoko to come over. So I imagine Satoko would have been over shortly. So whatever happened to Satoko would have happened then and there. And then I feel like Shion would have called Keiichi. Oh, fuck. You have no idea how relieved I am it just cut to black. Because it just cut to the next scene. Because that was something I just did. There was no point in seeing. And I feel like Ryukishi understood that as well. Like, there's no point in seeing that play out. You don't learn anything from it, right? With the other, like, torture scenes, there's something to glean from that. There's something to, like, learn from the scenes, right? With Kimiyoshi, there's something to learn, right? With the Rika scene, there's something to learn from that. There's information you get from it. But with Satoko, there was never anything to learn from that. You know what happened. You know that, the one we've known as Shion, the true Mion, always had this fucking hate boner for Satoko. This unreasonable fucking grudge against her. So it's just like, cut to black. You know what happened. We don't need the details. There's nothing to learn from it. You know what happened. And as long as it stays that way, you have no idea how much I appreciate that. I really do. Because like I said, other than that, there'd be nothing to gain from it. Nothing to learn from it. It just becomes torture porn at that point. And we don't need that. It doesn't need that. We don't need to see that. With, what she did to Oreo, I guess that's to set up the explanation that, like, she starts whipping her, realizes there's no reaction, and that's when, if the reader hadn't already figured it out, that explains to you, like, Oreo was dead from the stun gun immediately, right? And then with Kimiyoshi, there was, like, the interrogation. There was something to learn, or at least with Kimiyoshi coming over, for sure, there was something to learn about, like, it was yet another factor that made the true Mion snap in the way she does, right? With the Rika scene, there was something to learn, right? About Rika's true intentions for being there, about how that played out, but what truly happened to Rika, right? We kind of had an assumption of how things played out, but, like, here's the truth, right? Whereas with Satoko, we had an assumption of how things played out, and the cut to black essentially tells you, you're right. The assumptions you have, that whatever you assume, that's what happened, right? Because anyone can really connect the dots there, right? Because as even Rika calls her in her last moments, right? She calls her the torture maniac, right? She has an obsession with it, clearly. So, she sets up that, the call happens, you know what happens. We don't need to see it. There'd be nothing to learn from it. We already know that the demon has awakened within Mion. That's already been set up, especially through, Rika's death. We don't need to see what the demon does to Satoko. We know what the demon does. We don't need the details of what the demon did. Oh. Anyway.
さっきから呼んでるぞ。電話だ。園崎さんから。園崎さんってどっち？姉？妹？ そんなのは自分で出て聞きなさい。
もしもし。ミオンかシオンか。
私です。シオンです。こんばんは。
シオン、ゆべはつい興奮して。
It seems that my hanging up on him in the middle of his complaining last night had a positive effect.
私たちは運命共互いの無事の確認が自分たちの安全の唯一の保証なんです。
ああ、それについて。
だから私たちは互いの知っている高野さんたちみたいな死に方をしないために。
I heard Keiichi swallow
で
loudly.
は、もう怒らないで聞いてくれますよ。
ああ、大丈夫だ。
Keiichi agreed to be quiet and listen. I explained the dangerous situation Keiichi was in once again. Just like how some evil people in the village attacked Takano-san and Tomitake-san, they might attack us any day. It was ironic, of course, that while I was warning him, I was also the one who made sure the curse would fall upon him.
互いに何か気になることがあったら、互いの持つ小さな断片を合わせていけば、ひょっとすると高野さんたちを殺した。
And that's why she wants to know anything he
今
reports
年の事件に
back,
限らない。
in the hope she can like draw out the person who's trying to carry out the will of
過去の
Oyashiro-sama.
連続事件を解決する鍵が見つかるかも。
確かにそうだ。
では、最近誰かに監視されて。
I was making this up. I just wanted him to realize how urgent the situation
と言っ
was.
ても気のせいかも。でも一応報告。今は気のせいだと思っていますけど、これは気のせいじゃない。
少なくとも俺の方は大丈夫だ。
Seemed like nothing had happened to Keiichi today, at least. Now that the heads of all the three families were gone, it was possible the curse system had been destroyed entirely. If that was the case, then Keiichi might not be attacked after all. But if there was someone who did want to attack him, that meant that part of the system was still alive. In other words, my mission wouldn't be accomplished just yet. Keiichi is like a litmus test in this situation. I'd know whether or not all my enemies were gone, depending on if Keiichi got bitten. He sure is a very useful man. After that, I went along with what Keiichi said. So is that what the... Okay. So is that kind of what the implication is then? That like... This is the story of what happened in chapter 2, right? But is this a recurring thing where the true Mion does get her revenge? And that's why night 5 or year 5 always seems so different than the other 4? Right? The true Mion gets her revenge and always plays out differently. But like that's kind of like the setup. And like this one played out the way it does because Shion goes into the storehouse with them. And maybe she did in chapter 1 as well. But she didn't know Keiichi in chapter 1, right? Keiichi was introduced to Shion. Or that's the thing, because chapter 1 was kind of like... Chapter 1 wasn't necessarily what actually happened, right? Because, at least at the festival, because chapter 1... Because the event of chapter 1 was kind of like... The alibi the village came up with for Keiichi in that moment. And that's the thing, right? When, if the true Mion has, taken her revenge and, essentially takes over the household, right? Takes out Oreo and does something with the true Shion, right? The one we've known as Mion. Then that would explain why, if she's the one who answers the phone when Keiichi says, take Satoko to the festival. You go, oh, that doesn't sound like... She goes, oh, no, you sound just like Satoshi did that year. Which would make sense, because the true Mion is the one who answered the phone, right? And then it would also make sense why she ultimately doesn't do it. Because the true Mion has that grudge against Satoko. So she wouldn't do it. But then she comes up with some alibi for Keiichi regardless. Because that's what she wanted to happen for Satoshi, right? She wanted the village to... She wanted people to come up with an alibi to cover for him. So because they didn't do that for Satoshi, she does that for Keiichi, right? There's something to that, I think. So like how the festival played out in chapter 1 isn't necessarily what actually happened. That was just a cover story for what happened. It really feels like what happened in chapter 1 was more telling of, was kind of like more of a hint at Satoshi's ultimate fate, it seems. Because they keep saying that he's acting a lot like Satoshi, right? Yo, swinging the bat around, becoming very, directly challenging Mion, which... Yeah, no, I could see that, And, like, Mion's sad because, like... Because that's the thing. They already hinted... The one we know as Shion has already hinted that, like, Mion probably liked Satoshi as well. So clearly if Satoshi were like to challenge, to confront Mion in the same way that Keiichi did in chapter 1, she would those tears would essentially be genuine, right? If we were to think, like, if we were to put Satoshi in Keiichi's place in the events of chapter 1, right? And, like, essentially what happened at the festival is kind of a cover story, right? I could see it. I could see it. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, chapter 1 isn't one you should look at too much as, like, to decipher, like, the truth of the matter. Because I feel like chapter 1 is full of a bunch of, like, the festival, I feel like, is like, the cover story for Keiichi's actions, right? I feel like that's what it's more meant to serve as, and then what happens after the festival seems to be a parallel to what actually happened to Satoshi during the previous year. Right? That's really what it seems to be. That almost seems to be what the beginning of chapter 3 was supposed to be. If the beginning of chapter 1 was supposed to be Keiichi's, like, alibi, or, like, the cover story Shion would have wanted Satoshi to have, right? Then the beginning of chapter... the end and the back half of chapter 1 was to parallel Satoshi's ultimate fate. It feels like the first half of chapter 1 was to parallel the lead-up, Satoshi's actual feelings leading up to what ultimately happens on the night of Watanagashi. And then, that's the thing, Ooh. What if? That's kind of interesting. What if? What if the entirety, other than the ending, like what if the entirety of chapter 3, like chapter 1 kind of like is like a parallel, but like what if chapter 3 is more so a parallel of like what Satoshi did, right? Because like chapter 1 leads us to believe that like Keiichi was very standoffish, swinging the bat around and whatnot. But then ultimately, that's the thing. I'm starting to think like the very end of chapter 3, aside from the, like the gas explosion, what if that was more so a parallel of what Satoshi's fate could have been, right? What if, you know, because that's the thing, like Keiichi starts going off about like how he killed his uncle for you. Like he did it to like make you happy. I killed him for you. I killed him. What if there is a parallel there? Well, because that's the thing. With this chapter, they're implying that Satoshi is the bottom of the well. Or at least that's what Kimiyoshi is saying he believes the truth is. And that's what Mion believes the truth is. And maybe, for all we know, that is where his body is. But like, what if, right? What if he did come to Satoko saying that he did all this for her? Right? I killed our aunt for you. I did that for you. And what if she responded in the way she did? Like the same way she did to Keiichi's, confession like that. Interesting. That's the thing. The situation with Irie wouldn't have played out the same with Satoshi. Satoshi wouldn't have killed Irie. Clearly, Irie's still around. Very interesting. But that's kind of like what I'm starting to suspect, right? What if Satoshi wasn't approached by Sonozaki's? What if he truly wasn't? They're trying to imply he was this chapter, but what if he wasn't? Maybe that's why they set up someone to take the fall for Satoshi. Not as like an act of forgiveness, right? But because Satoko had, responded the way she did. What if that's what the end of chapter 3 was meant to parallel? Satoshi shows up. Ooh. Because Satoshi shows up, he has like... Maybe he did get the gift. Well, no, that's the thing. They say he never made it back to Hinamizawa. That is like the official story. Well, that's the thing. That's the official story. Can we trust the official story? They say he left for Okonomiya. And that's the thing. The shop owner is a Sonozaki. So they could set it up to look like, either A, he got the bear, or, you know, the bear was gone and he was like very depressed about it. But what if? Because we know he was still in Hinamizawa for a couple days leading up to. Because that's the thing. What if on Satoko's birthday, he like approaches her in the morning and says it like he has like some kind of gift for her? Interesting. I don't know if that's quite the case. And he tries to plead with her. Because that's the thing. I feel like if Satoko had been the one to actually, push him off the way she did. Because that's the thing. In chapter 3, she talks a lot about, like, he's gonna come back one day, right? In chapter 3, she always talks, before the events of before the uncle ends up coming back, right? Before the uncle ends up moving back into town. She does talk about, like, she believes he's gonna come back one day. She knows he'll come back one day. So maybe that's not the case. Maybe that's not the case. Unless she's just delusional about it, but I think that's taking it a step too far. No. No. I think the back half of chapter 1 is more so to parallel... More so meant to parallel, Satoshi's true fate. He probably did get cornered. Yeah. That's the thing. He probably did get cornered by villagers. Like the Sonozakis. Maybe the Sonozakis did offer to, like, hey, if you skip town, this whole thing will blow over. Well, if you skip town, we'll take care of your sister. Maybe they did set up that deal. But then maybe Oreo also floats the information like, oh, someone's trying to leave the village. This boy is trying to leave the village. Yashiro-sama won't like that. Right? So then ultimately he gets jumped outside of town in a similar way how like Keiichi got, he was being chased by Reina and eventually villagers like cornered him at the dam site. I could see a similar thing happening. The villagers corner him, he gets taken somewhere else. Probably to the Sonozaki basement. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's definitely the case. I think chapter 1 is definitely, like, especially the lead up to it, is meant to mirror, at least the back half of it, I mean, is meant to mirror, like, Satoshi's ultimate fate, is kind of what I believe. And then, like, the first half, especially concerning the festival, is more so to cover Keiichi's alibi of whatever he actually does during the festival. Because mayhaps he does do something. Mayhaps he is involved in some way. It's more so meant to be like whatever his alibi is. Because that's the thing. At least from what we can glean from chapter 3, right? There is the big gas explosion. Keiichi is somehow one of the only survivors. Especially, someone who was actually in the village, or so we believe was in the village. But that doesn't happen the night of Watanagashi. It happens a few days later. I don't know. There's a lot to consider. But ultimately, what got me all started on this thread was the thought that, like, the true Mion in all these stories does actually try to take retake her rightful position, right? That's ultimately what I get the vibe is. And it would make sense why Mion then creates a cover story for Keiichi, right? Because she believes Keiichi took out the uncle. So she creates an elaborate cover story for him. Yeah, there's so much to consider, man. There's so much. That's honestly the great thing about this chapter. They clear up like one of the chapters, right? They give you a behind the scenes look at like what happened, like what like really happened with this chapter. And the more they keep giving you, the more it makes me think about the other chapters and what they either A, represent, or like what truth is hidden in those chapters, right? Because like it was a similar thing kind of like with Umineko, right? Umineko obviously is a lot different than Higurashi is. It tells the mystery in a much different way. But like that's the thing, like with each episode, obviously there's reasons why those play out a lot differently, but like there's still like little kernels of truth to be found in the episodes, right? When the back half of Umineko, the last 4 episodes kind of start to clear up some things, as much as it does, obviously like a big key theme of that story is that you as an outsider are not meant to know the full answers. The full answers aren't supposed to be given to you. That's a big portion of that story. But like from what it does, kind of like the details it does kind of give to you for you to like figure it out for yourself if you can, you do realize there are, with all the embellishments that are within the earlier episodes, there's still some truth to be found in there. I'm thinking there might be something similar with this story. Not to try to compare the two all the time. I know I do this way too often. I try to compare the two, even though this one, came first. But I'm feeling like that might be the case. Like, especially chapter 1, it might not be wholly representative of the truth of what happened, in 1983. But it can provide little kernels of truth to other parts of the mystery that help clear things up in some capacity. But anyway, I've rambled long enough about this. Continue. I made sure he was fearful of Mion, as well as all of the 3 families. I explained to him the possibility that the whole village was involved, and that the curse of Yashiro-sama might be some sort of system. Then I remembered Shion wouldn't know too much about the disappearance of the mayor, so I continued.
私もついさっき君吉のおじいちゃんが行方。
村長さんのことか。なんだシオン、聞いてないのか？
何も知らないです。お父さんが電話でそう話してるのを。
ああ、実はな、昨べ会合の後、村中で探したみたいだけど、まだ見つかったって話は警察も探してるはずなんだけど。
なんでそんな大事な話を先にして。
悪い。もう知ってると思ってた。駆けつきなんかなかった。
ケイちゃん、私。
どうした？話せよ。俺たちの間で。
ごめん。ちょっと言うのが
俺たちは仲間だろ。怒ったりしないから。
私、君吉のおじいちゃんに。
君吉のじいさんってのは、シオンにとって相談できる心安い人なんだろう。
はい、私のこと。小さい頃、私。いつも意地悪なことをし、私の言うことは何でも本当に優しい人。
落ち着けよ。別にそんな簡単に諦めるなよ。
He just tried to make me feel better. He had no idea what was actually going on. It really made me laugh.
村長さんに、私、西宮殿に忍び込誰かにそれを見られてて。
村長さんは、高野さんと。
はい、知っていました。あの二人が、お社様のたたりで死んだから、本当に率直に言いました。
ああ、それで。
君吉のおじいちゃん。そしてにっこり笑って本当に笑いながら任せなさいって。
Actually got a little sad while saying that. Uncle Kimiyoshi had been so reliable. I was happy when he said that he would protect Shion. I truly was happy. Only he hadn't said anything to insult Satoshi-kun.
私のせいです。私が。
よせよシオン。
シオンのせいじゃ。
いいえ、私のせいだ。私が君吉のおじいちゃんが。だって打ち明けて大丈夫って言ってくれたその晩に消えてしまった。
It was such a strange feeling. I wasn't upset at all, but as I pretended to be upset and muttered words of prayer for Kimiyoshi's safety, I started to feel that emotion growing inside of me. I was only pretending to be distressed to fool Keiichi, yet the emotion I feigned began welling up inside me. I felt like I was being consumed by that emotion. So the words coming from my mouth weren't words I intentionally said. They were words that consuming emotion forced me to say. It was like someone else inside of me was doing the talking instead, and I was just watching that someone talk from a short distance away.
話すんじゃなかった。これは全部私たち4人のトガだったはず。他人に話してはいけないことだったんです。話したから殺されてしまった。知ったから殺されてしまった。打ち明けたから殺されてしまった。
おい待て、そんなやつなら打ち明けた村長を殺す前に順番が違うよ。殺されるなら俺かシオンが先、他のやつらが先に死んだりするものか。
順番はあります。私たちを一番最後に殺すつもりに違い。
なんだって。
人思いに殺さないで親しい人たちから順々に殺していって散々悲しい思いをさせた後に殺す、そういう狙いに違いないんです。
What I just said scared even me. Killing our loved ones first to harm us emotionally, and only then kill us at the height of our suffering. That's what made you realize what you want to do to me, to the one we know as Mion. Whoa. I felt something crawling up my spine. That's awesome. It's an awesome idea, yeah. I must not be human anymore. I really am a demon. A human could never think of such cruel things. That would be one incredible hell. Your close friends dying one at a time after being tortured, and after all that, you yourself get killed. What a great way to destroy someone's life. Why was I getting so excited about this? Because I could get going with that plan right away.
リカちゃん、リカちゃんだ。
え、今なんて。
俺も実はリカちゃんに今日。
リカちゃんってリカちゃまのフルデ神社のリカちゃん。
そうだよ、俺もどうしようもなくリカちゃんに。
そうしたら
猫さんの心配し、僕がきっと。リカちゃんはそうごめんシオン。俺。
あ、はい、そんな安否を確認してみてください。
ああ、そうさせても。
また明日もこのくらいの時間にそれを持って私の安否確認としてください。
分かった、待ってる。じゃあな、すまん、切るぞ。
Paging him roughly. What a hilarious conversation with Keiichi. Everything was just too damn funny. Keiichi Maibara, go ahead and struggle helplessly. Run all over the village and see if the curse is still alive. Go ahead and see if my enemies are still around. I laughed for a while and then calmed down. I'd already got rid of the bicycles and shoes belonging to Rika and Satoko. My house was, for the moment, taken care of. I could expect Keiichi to run around in a panic, to ask for help from someone, and then ultimately come to Mion. More than likely the youth group would end up looking for Rika like they did with the mayor. I'd probably have to endure another long night again, knowing nobody would find her. I decided to wait until the phone rang. I killed time by watching TV until I did.
ケイちゃん、本気で言って、もし冗談だったらかなり怒るよ。
I scolded Keiichi for suspecting that Rika had disappeared.
みーちゃん、本当に冗談だったなら、だって冗談なんだから。私たちはそれが冗談であることを確かめなくちゃいけない。
そうだね。機嫌の悪そうなことを言ってごめん。
Reina rebuked me. While she looked quiet, I felt that she could be very terrifying under her skin. Damn right, it's my goat. I had no basis for that impression, but I still felt that way. I just didn't like her. I disliked her ever since that rainy day at the bus stop. Yo, I'm starting to think that, like, the people, the true Mion here dislikes are kind of like the people I fuck with heavy. Which I think is just yet another reason why I really don't like you. I think she's a very interesting character. I will give you that much. She's definitely become a character I'm much more interested in. Can't fucking stand her, for sure, but it's like, she hates Satoko, she's very distrustful of Reina, she's got she's suspicious of Rika. I mean, Rika not so much, she only kind of gets suspicious of her, like, you know, leading up to her death, but like, still, like, those are like my top three right there. Reina, Rika, Satoko, those are my goats. And the fact that those are like the ones where it's like, oh, I can't stand her. Ever since that day at the bus stop, I'm like, nah, that's bestie right there. I don't know what to tell you. It wasn't that we didn't get along, though. How should I put it? I was at a loss for how to explain. Yeah, she's weird, and you don't like weird girls. Fuck you. Ah, that was it. I found a good example. When I was little, I always wanted to play tennis. I had my relatives take me to a tennis court, and they all praised my skill. I was doing nothing more than hitting a ball with a racket, but they told me I was talented, and that made me happy. When I went to school, I told my classmates I played tennis. They told me that I was talented too. Then, one of my classmates, who was usually very quiet, said she also played tennis. Not only did she play, but she took lessons. Although I bragged about my serve, I was no match for her. Felt lonely and insulted that everyone was paying attention to her and not me. Ah. You met a bitch that could out-freak you and you got scared about it. Mm-hmm. That's my goat. She was usually very quiet, but suddenly I realized she knew more and had a lot more experience than me. Yeah. You ain't realize how much of a threat she really was. Mm-hmm. Rain at the bus stop was just like that. I thought of myself as a demon now. But you don't know a fucking demon. Yeah. I'd awakened a part of me that was half human and half demon. The part that lived in Onegahuchi village. In fact, I already stepped into a new world where normal humans couldn't go. I'd already surpassed my human limits. I genuinely thought of myself as a superior being, having transcended the realm of mortals. But when my eyes met with Reina Ryugu's, I felt what I did long ago with tennis. Why? Why did I feel that way with Reina? That's a real demon right there, baby. I'd heard that in the animal world during battle, animals glare at each other to display their strength. Only humans have to punch or kick each other to feel superiority or inferiority. Most animals can tell us by glaring at each other. In that case, could it be the same with Reina?
みーちゃん大丈夫？
ああ、ごめん。ほらさ、昨日から寝不足で。ごめん。
Keiichi climbed up a ladder and tried to peek into the window on the second floor where Rika and Satoko lived. It was my job to hold down the ladder. Reina cautioned me to hold on to it tightly.
みーちゃん、私念のため本宅の方も見てくるね。すぐ戻るから。
よろしく。
Reina ran off after that. When I looked up, I saw Keiichi trying to open a window, but all of them were locked.
本宅ってなんだ？
Keiichi asked me from the top of the ladder.
古出家の本当の家だよ。両親が亡くなって以来、ずっと。
あ、そうか。リカちゃんのご両親って。
サトコも親はいない。お社様のたたりってことで、お兄さんだったサトシ君も。
サトシって前に聞いた名前だな。
You'd heard the name before? I felt anger growing inside of me. Don't you know whose desk you're using every day? You act as if it belongs to you. You drop food on it while eating lunch. You drool on it while taking a nap. Don't you know who it really belongs to? Why am I acting this way? I'm Mion. Satoshi-kun doesn't even exist anymore. He was demoned away. It's hardly Keiichi's fault that he didn't know. It really isn't his fault.
サトコはリカちゃんと一緒にこの互いに身寄りのない一人ぼ助け合ってね。
本宅って言ったか。そっちで暮らした方が楽。
初めはそうしてたみたい。でも両親を思い出すから辛いって言って。
After everyone in Satoko's family died, she started living with Rika. It only made sense. Satoko and Rika were best friends. They didn't care about the Hojo family or the Furude family. They had been best friends since before the dam conflict. The reason why the curse never fell upon Satoko. Rika Furude probably had a lot to do with it. That made more sense than anything else, at least. Satoko was pardoned from the curse of the Hojo family, all thanks to Rika Furude's arrangements. Satoko had never been a victim on the night of Watanagashi. According to the curse system I'd uncovered, the last survivor of the Hojo family still living in Hinamizawa would be the perfect target for this year's curse. Therefore, whoever was responsible for executing the curse must have tried to take her life. However, nothing happened to her, proving that Satoko had escaped from the curse. That was really and truly infuriating. She might have been the head of the Furude family, but I still couldn't accept that such a little girl had enough power to protect her best friend. Shion must have had the same power then. Just like Rika protected Satoko, Shion could have protected Satoshi. Damn it.
リカちゃんもサトコも大 大変な。
呪われてるんだよ。
ミオン、お前今。
呪われてる。
ミオン、お前。
北条里子、お社様のたたりを一心に受けた呪われた子なの。
I can't accept that Satoko was pardoned from the curse, although she was a member of the cursed Hojo family. She was one of the cursed Hojos. Satoshi-kun wasn't pardoned, but Satoko was. She was cursed, but she got away. She escaped the curse, but Satoshi-kun didn't. I can't accept that. In fact, Satoko should have been the one to be cursed the most. She cornered Satoshi-kun That was why things got weirder and weirder, and in the end, everything went crazy. When I think back on it, it was Satoko who I hated most of all. Yeah, no shit, I kind of figured that out. Uh-huh. I'm sorry, what? She cornered Satoshi-kun, and as a result, Satoshi-kun disappeared? What's censored here? We're inside your head hearing your thoughts. Why are your thoughts getting censored? What the fuck? She started it. She caused it. If only she hadn't been there. Just as Rika Furude and Satoko had lived happily, maybe there had been a happy future for me too. No. Maybe Satoshi and I could have started our lives together in Okonomiya. No. Yes, if I look at both the beginning and the end, it's so obvious. Satoko's existence got everything. Jesus. Satoshi-kun had to kill his aunt because of Satoko. The three families used that need to create the curse. Then they killed him. I mean, yes. But, like, because the aunt was the problem. Police were convinced he just ran away, but he'd never do that. He was the type of person who always did his best at everything. All by himself. He was doing the very best he could for his only sister, yet he was forced to vanish. He worked so hard for Satoko. And though he was living just for her, he was erased. Poor Satoshi-kun. He was so underappreciated. Like, I agree with that, but you're focusing on the wrong asshole here. That girl, ugh. If you got near, you'd meet the same fate. You'd be cursed to die, or disappear. That really was it. No. She wormed her way into Rika's good graces. Uh-huh. And that's why the curse fell upon Satoshi. Sure. Sure. She should have died first. Sure. Then Satoshi would still be alive. If he was alive, I could have done something for him. Yeah. Because I'm sure he would have loved you trying to console him if he found out his sister was dead. I'm sure he would have loved you trying to move in and try to fill the gap in his heart that his sister left behind. Oh yeah, no. I'm sure you could have made big moves with that. Absolutely. I can't forgive her. I can't forgive Satoko. I can't forgive that girl. There can be no peace with her. There can be no peace. Bro, she's already dead. She was the perfect target for the curse of 1983. The curse of Yashiro-sama. Rika Furude, the reincarnation of Yashiro-sama. Rika was dead. The reincarnation of Yashiro-sama has died. There was no more God in Namizawa to deliver the curse. I'm the one who has to deliver it now. I am Mion Sonozaki, the head of the Sonozaki family, one of the three families of Onagafuchi. Now that all the heads of the three families are gone, there's nobody to surpass me. I will deliver the curse of Yashiro-sama and nobody else. I'll deliver it. I am the curse. I have become Yashiro-sama. I felt hot bubbles boiling over deep inside of me. I could tell the demon inside of me wanted to roar. I noticed Keiichi was looking down at me. Calm down, Mion. You can't tell what you're thinking. Calm down, calm down. At that point, I heard footsteps coming closer. I saw 4 or 5 adults, accompanied by Reina, running towards us with flashlights in their hands. One of them opened the lock on the cabin door and we all went inside. Of course, there was nobody there. Satoko and Rika lived alone. I doubt Satoko would have left a note saying she was going over to the Sonozaki house when Rika was there already. It wouldn't be fun if she had. Because of that, I hurried into the room ahead of Reina to make sure there was nothing left behind. The rumor of Rika and Satoko's disappearance spread around the village quickly. More and more villagers gathered at the Furude shrine. Acting in place of the head of the Sonozaki family, I commanded them to search the village. The villagers nodded and scattered. How long had it been since the last time I was truly Mion? I felt so pleased that my body almost went numb. Lots of villagers went in and out of the shrine. They yelled at each other that she was nowhere to be found. Some suggested other places to look, and they all left. They made a lot of noise with their comings and goings. Members of the Women's Association brought out huge pots and gas cookers from the storage and got ready to cook for the men. That was when I noticed Keiichi unsteadily walking toward a copse of dark pine trees. What was he thinking? How stupid of him to be alone on a night like this. If a person responsible for executing the curse nearby, he wouldn't come back safely.
ミオンちゃん、お茶が池の方も池の中も照らしたけど明るくなんないと。
ありがとうございます。婦人部の皆さんがお味噌汁を作ってくれてます。
ミオンちゃん、あの二人って。
さあ、多分境内の階段のまさかあの階段を担いで上がったり。
ないんだよね。どこかに。
自転車で遊びに行ったなら町か。
だとすると、ひなみさん。
そういえばリカちゃま。
ああ、急に虫がしら。
前原屋。
そういえば前原家は来てないのか。
前原家は町会未加入だから青年団の連絡網に入ってないんよ。
なあ、すったらんしょうがな。
俺入ったろうちょ。あれさね、連絡網新年に作った途中から越してきたからの。
前原のせがれさんの
第一発見者が一等怪しい。そのせがれは
さっき誰か呼んでくる？
Conveniently, I saw Keiichi and Reina walking back toward us.
ケイちゃん、どこ行ってた？ケイちゃんまでいなくなったのかと心配したよ。
すまん。
It looked like nothing had happened to Keiichi. If so, that's fine. It means I took care of all my enemies.
おやおやおや、おいしい匂いが漂って、これはぜひご評判に預かりたいですね。
I heard the loud, sticky voice of a middle-aged man. It was Oishi. You must be confused about this year's incident. The scale of the curse this time is nothing like the previous ones. Oishi's information network is about equal to or better than that of the elders on the town council. In other words, he could easily uncover a rumor that was circulating through the underside of the village. He must have come here to see if the disappearance of Kimiyoshi and Rika had something to do with the changing of the lock on the ritual storehouse's door. The police will come for me sooner or later. I am Mion Sonozaki. By removing all of the heads of the three families, my enemies, I have become the head in their place. I can't allow Mion Sonozaki to continue existing. I'll have to destroy the existence of the head of the Sonozaki family. When I destroy my own position, that is when my revenge will come to an end. More than likely, I'll have Oishi witness my final moments. My eyes and Oishi's met. Damn it, he thinks I'm suspicious already. You're right, Oishi. I did it. Mion Sonozaki, the head of the Sonozaki family, is the culprit. Ooh, notebook pages. Rika Hurade. She was the head of the Hurade family, but she never even appeared at the most important meetings. Even if she did show up, nobody would ask for her opinion, so it never really mattered if she was there or not. A legend of the Hurade family says that if their firstborn child is a girl for 8 generations in a row, that 8th girl would be the reincarnation of Yashiro-sama. According to Takano-san's research, Rika Hurade is very likely to be the one. Surely she must be an important icon in the cult of Yashiro-sama. The true believers are devoted to her. So it's quite surprising to me that Rika Hurade herself was the assassin. It's unbelievable. It's just too abnormal. Usually a VIP like her wouldn't be the one to assassinate someone. It's possible that it was a Rika Hurade look-alike. From the way she moved, she seemed experienced in fighting. It's not normal that a small girl like her would jump me without faltering. I just got lucky because I had a stun gun. Without it, I don't know what would have happened. She was far more skilled than she looked. Was she trained as an assassin? Or was it a body double? Everything is a mystery, including that creepy syringe. What's going on? Can't understand. She was like an apparition or something. Did Oreo Sonozaki know of her existence? What is hiding on the underside of this village? That underside might run much deeper than I thought. At this point, I believe that I can complete my revenge by destroying the curse system entirely. That means I have to eliminate the heads of all 3 families, the successor Shion, and the assassins who are after Keiichi. Although Keiichi is completely unguarded, he hasn't been attacked so far. Even though I told everybody that he was one of the trespassers. In fact, it's me who's being attacked. Rika Hurade attacked me. According to my theory, Keiichi should make for very attractive bait, but nobody has done anything to harm him. Since Rika Furure attacked me, it might be that opposing the Furure family is a greater taboo than trespassing in the ritual storehouse. Rika Furure had said that the intrusion wasn't a big deal. She sounded like she was going to let Keiichi walk. And after I accused her of that, Rika Furure attacked me that very night. Are there two different factions? Does one handle trespassers in the ritual storehouse, while the other protects the religious doctrines of the Furure family? No, that doesn't make sense. Tomitake-san's death must have been caused by the Furure family's injections. Rika showed me the effect of it herself, clawing out her own throat and dying like that. But Tomitake-san shouldn't have been subject to the curse, at least according to the system of the Furure family. I don't understand why Keiichi hasn't been attacked. Did he have something exempting him from the curse, unlike Takano-san? Just like how only Satoko Hojo was spared. Keiichi is a friend of Rika Furure's, so does that mean if you were close to her, you wouldn't be cursed? Was she more important than the whole system? That's impossible. The hag was at the top of the curse system. Rika couldn't have been higher up than her. Are there multiple ways to determine the subject of the curse? Are there as many curse execution groups as there are subjects, and do they all work separately? That's a mess. None of my theories add up. If I mess up my reasoning, I might make the wrong person the target of my revenge. I don't understand who the enemy is, or how Satoshi-kun was made to disappear. How much did the hag know? That really was a huge loss. I have so many things I wanted to ask her. I killed her by accident. Shit. In that respect, I have already failed my revenge. The underside of Hinamizawa really does run too deep. The whole page is blacked out with scribbles. A lot to think about. A lot to think about.
Yo!
Yo! Alright, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to wrap up this recording here for today. But by God, this one definitely got me thinking. Holy shit. Like, obviously, I knew this one was going to kick off, the answer arcs of Higurashi, but still, just with what they fed me thus far, like, goddamn, it's got me thinking. Got me pondering. Very, very interesting. Has definitely developed Shion into a much more interesting character. I will say that. Chapter 2 and 3, obviously, y'all kind of knew my impression of her. Wasn't the biggest fan. Didn't like her very much. The first half of chapter 5, even still, I wasn't feeling her all that much, but damn, what we've gotten in these last two recordings has definitely, like, I don't like her, but, like, she's a very interesting character. Very interesting. I'm very interested to see how this all comes to a close, right? Because by the end of chapter 2, it's believed that both Mion and Shion are dead, right? We're under the impression that both of them are dead. So is Keiichi, like, having some kind of hallucination when he sees Mion at, the very end of the chapter, which is kind of the assumption, right? That's what I had assumed, but, like, what if it isn't? But if it isn't, then I'm very curious to see what happens, right? Because, like, if the one with the demon on their back is the one that is dead in the pit, that would be the one that's in the cage, that's caged right now. And if so, then the true Mion is the one that shanks Keiichi. But if she is, then why? Because so far, the true Mion hasn't had a reason to want to kill Keiichi. He's bait that she uses to want to lure out the actual assassins and whatnot. But she hasn't wanted him dead. Or maybe it's just because he knows too much, right? He's put together, the pieces a bit too much, right? Because eventually he does start to piece things together. So maybe he was just like a loose end to get rid of. Could be. Could be. I don't know. Very interested. Very interested to see what we continue to learn from this one. Because like I said, it's really got me thinking and pondering. And I'm loving it. But yeah, like I said, I'm gonna have to wrap this one up here. Also, for those of you who are keeping up with the playthrough as it comes out, obviously if you're watching all this later in a playlist, it's not going to matter. But for those of you keeping up in the present day as the videos come out, just going to give you all a heads up. I'm going to be leaving for a trip here shortly. I will be gone for 5 days, so no recordings, no streams or anything. So just a heads up there. So I won't have the time to record tomorrow. I leave the next day, so that's a solid 6 days where there'll be no recording. And I don't know what my work schedule looks like the following week, so who knows, it might be longer than that. So there will be a bit of a gap. Apologies for that, but I will try to get back to it as soon as I can. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to wrap this one up here for today. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see y'all in the next one. Till then, peace.